Water Academy, Pune. And a very warm welcome to all the distinguished guests present for this webinar on legal and institutional framework for dam safety in India. We had a wonderful session yesterday, 2 sessions. Today also we have scheduled 2 sessions, and this will be the last day of the webinar. And first session will be taken up by very respected Shri J. Chandrashekhar Iyer sir, former chairman, Central Water Commission, New Delhi, who will take up the topic duties, responsibilities, and functions of dam owning authorities under the Act. The second session will be taken up by Dr. B.R.K. Pillai, Chief Engineer, Human Resources Management, Central Water Commission, New Delhi, who shall take up the topic on journey of legal and institutional framework for dam safety in India and way forward. At the end of the 2 sessions, we will also share the feedback form. Kindly fill it. And now I welcome Shri Chandrashekhar, J. Chandrashekhar Iyer sir, former chairman, Central Water Commission. But before inviting him, I will briefly mention about his experience and expertise. He graduated in civil engineering from SB National Institute of Technology, Surat, and obtained MTech in civil engineering from IIT Madras in the year 1986. As a NORAD fellow, he pursued Master of Science in Hydropower Development from Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Pande. He has had over 36 years of professional experience in the water resources sector. His major stint has been in the D&R wing of Central Water Commission. His key area of specialization include irrigation, hydropower, and dams project planning, hydraulic and structural analysis, and detailed design engineering of various components of surface and underground projects, dam safety engineering, project construction, coordination, and implementation. Over the years, he made significant contributions in the design engineering of several projects in the country. His overseas contributions include design consultancy in projects in Afghanistan, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, and Tajikistan. He served Ministry of Water Resources, Government of Ethiopia, as an ITEC expert from Government of India for 6 months, wherein he assisted them in their irrigation, water supply, and hydropower projects and capacity building programs. As CEO, Polavaram Project Authority, Hyderabad, he steered the implementation of Polavaram Irrigation Project. As member, Design and Research Central Water Commission, he also held the additional charge of Chairman, National Dam Safety Authority, New Delhi, under the provisions of the Dam Safety Act 2021. As Chairman, Godavari River Management Board, he had been responsible for the implementation of the mandate given under the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act 2014, the states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Earlier, as Commissioner of Flood Management in Ministry of Water Resources, beside other works, he has been involved in the bilateral discussions on water resources projects and in the implementation of the treaties, agreements on transboundary rivers with Bangladesh and Nepal. He has made significant technical contribution to BIS Board, CWC, CBIP, and IRC publications. He has to his credit around 35 papers in national and international conferences. He is recipient of IGS AFCONS Award for Best Paper from Indian Geotechnical Society and GM Nawathe Award for the Best Paper from Indian Society for Hydraulic, and recipient of CWC Landmark Publication Award on 3 occasions. A very warm welcome, sir, and you can share your presentation on the screen. Thank you, sir, and welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Pande ji. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is the PPT visible?
sir.
A very good morning to all the distinguished participants to this webinar on legal and institutional framework for dam safety in India. At the outset, let me congratulate Chairman Central Water Commission and his team of officers, as well as Chief Engineer National Water Academy and his team of officers for organizing this another edition of webinar on legal and institutional framework for dam safety in India. I can recall last year also, National Water Academy had organized a similar webinar on the subject. 2022 was the year when the implementation of the Dam Safety Act started and National Dam Safety Authority was established by Ministry of Jal Shakti, and NDSA started taking baby steps towards initializing all the various aspects of the Dam Safety Act. In order to familiarize the stakeholders in the country, is it, am I audible? Everything is clear?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Ministry of Jal Shakti, Central Water Commission and NDSA organized one-day workshop in June 2022 to familiarize all the stakeholders in this field of dam safety about the various provisions of the Act. As this Act is a landmark Act in the field of dam safety, and it extends the whole of the country, all the 28 states and 3 union territories. Prior to this, we had Government of India initiatives in this field, namely the DSARP, the DRIP Phase 1, and the ongoing DRIP Phase 2, which has laid a very good foundation for taking forward and implementing the Dam Safety Act, the details of which were already presented yesterday by Mr. Vijay Sharan, Chief Engineer, Dam Safety Organization, Central Water Commission. Basically, the preamble of the Act, which you can read in front of you, talks primarily on the surveillance, inspection, operation, and maintenance of the specified dam. I have underlined here specified dam, which was explained yesterday by the speaker. And it talks of the institutional mechanism, basically to prevent dam failure related disasters, as well as have a uniform dam safety protocol in the entire country. The topic given to me today is the duties, responsibilities, and functions of dam owning authorities under the Act. This is one of the most important part of the whole Dam Safety Act. And once the dam owning authorities understand their responsibilities, I think half the job is done. This Dam Safety Act in front of you in this slide has 11 chapters, 56 sections, and 3 schedules. And it is a 21-page document, which is one of the best acts supposed to be in the world. And I've heard friends in ICOLD as well who are appreciative of this act. Yesterday, the Chief Engineer Dam Safety Organization had touched upon the initial 5 chapters of this act. The remaining chapters he had briefly highlighted. Today, I would like to go into deep the chapters from 6 to 11, which basically deals with the duties, functions, and responsibilities of NDSA, SDSO, and dam owning authorities. While doing so, I would be talking about few terms which are very important to understand, and I would be reading some of the lines of the act, not only reading the lines, but I also would be reading in between the lines so that we are able to understand the spirit of the act and what a dam owning authority has to really do. Now, dam under the act has been defined in a way that one should be very clear of. One should be very clear that what is the asset in front of him, which he is to ensure the safety of. Dam under the act has been designed as any artificial barrier and its appurtenant structure constructed across rivers or tributaries thereof with a view to impound or divert water. This is quite important, which also include barrage, weir, and similar water impounding structures. There was a doubt from a distinguished participant yesterday about the barrage, which is very clearly mentioned in the Act. But it does not include canal, aqueduct, navigation channel, and similar water conveyance structures. It does not include flood embankment, dike, guide bund, and similar flow regulation structures. So we should be very clear in distinguishing this. Whenever there is a breach of embankment, people say there is a failure of dam. No, it should not be misconstrued as a failure of dam when a dike or guide bund or a flood embankment is concerned. Our act is focusing on these aspects. And as far as the appurtenant structure is concerned, it talks of the spillways either in the dam or separate therefrom, maybe in the saddle dam. Lower level outlet structure and water conduits such as tunnels, pipelines, or penstocks, either through the dam or its abutments or reservoir rim. Hydromechanical equipment includes the gates, walls, hoists, and elevators, energy dissipation and river training structure, and other associated structures which are acting integrally with the dam or its reservoir rim. So this is very clearly defined in the Act what dam means and what appurtenant structure means. The next term which has been used here is specified dam, which was deliberated yesterday. And it's very clear as far as 15 meters and above is concerned. Between 10 meters to 15 meters, there are certain criteria laid down. And this is very important because there has been a lot of confusions, and the earlier number of 5734 dams, large dams in the country, which was as per the National Register of Large Dams 2019, the numbers have increased. Last year, the National Dam Safety Authority in October, November had certain meetings with the stakeholders, all the states, all the CPSUs, and all the private dam owning agencies in the 4 regions of the country: northern region at Chandigarh, eastern region at Guwahati, southern region at Coimbatore, and the western region at Pune. Again, there was good interaction among all the heads of the State Committee on Dam Safety and the State Dam Safety organizations. And we could find that there was certain confusion prevailing in the criteria which they were adopting. Some state was adopting not less than 3 million cubic meter. And once they have rectified it, now we see that yesterday the reported figure is crossing 6,500. So it is very important that we first clearly delineate our specified dam and other than specified dams. So the first task of all the states, 28 states and 3 UTs, is to freeze the number of specified dams which are existing and which are under construction. And as far as the safety measures in respect of dams other than specified dams, there are 2 sections in this Act which are dealing with that. One is section 46, which reads as follows: that every owner of the dam other than specified dams shall undertake such measures as may be necessary to ensure dam safety and shall comply with such measures as may be specified by the regulations. Now, what are these regulations? These regulations, there is a window for other than specified dams in section 54 of the Act, where NDSA can lay down regulations for other than specified dams as well, which can be implemented by the owners of the non-specified dams. But primarily, the Act is for specified dams, and every line, every section, a mention is of the specified dam. And even in this slide, dam, if not prefixed, means specified dams only. This institutional mechanism was already discussed yesterday, and I have placed this slide only to say that there are two committees for surveillance of this subject matter. At the national level, we have the NCDS, and at the state level, we have the SCDS. As far as the organizations are concerned, there are two organizations. One is at the national level, that is the National Dam Safety Authority. And at the state level, we have the SDSO. And the main key player in this whole subject matter is the dam safety unit at the owner's level. So we need to understand that the three main players on this are the ones which are owning the dams and the other one who have jurisdiction of the dams. NDSA has certain jurisdiction of the dams, and State Dam Safety Organization also has jurisdiction of dams. Now let us see what is that jurisdiction of these two organizations, and then we need to separate out this with the dam owning authorities. Why it's not moving? Now, under the Act, owner of specified dam can be central government, can be the departments of the state governments, electricity boards, or it can be the irrigation department or the generation and corporations. The owners can be jointly by one or more governments. It can be a public sector undertaking of the center or the state, and it can be local authorities, municipal corporations, and it can be companies in the private sector. So basically, any or all of such persons or organizations who own, control, operate, or maintain a specified dam are the owners of the dam, specified dam. So, and they are the people who are responsible primarily for implementing the provisions under the Dam Safety Act. There are a lot of provisions in this Act, but Section 25 of the Act is a very good disclaimer saying that nothing contained in this Act shall be construed to absolve an owner of a specified dam of the duties, obligations, or liabilities incidental to the construction, operation, maintenance, and supervision of the dam or reservoir. So prime responsibility lies on the owner of the specified dam, and he is responsible to take all steps forward to implement the various provisions of the Act. Now, the second word which has been used in the, there is one tag coming in the, Mr. Pande. There is one patch coming in the center of the slide. Can that be removed? People are viewing Microsoft Pump. It's coming as a patch in the center. Pandeji?
PPT we can see very clearly, sir.
Pardon?
PPT we can see very clearly, sir. No issue is there in our.
I am for me, it's coming in the center, which is blocking.
Okay.
Okay, fine. No issue.
Okay.
So there is another term which is mentioned in the Act is about the jurisdiction of State Dam Safety Organization and NDSA. It talks of both NDSA and SDSO having a jurisdiction. All specified dams, it says, shall fall under the jurisdiction of the State Dam Safety Organization of the state in which it is situated. So a dam belonging to a private company, or it belongs to the water resource department, or it belongs to the electricity boards or the generation corporations, all fall under the jurisdiction of the State Dam Safety Organization, provided for matters which has been mentioned in the Act. But there are exceptions to that, provided where a specified dam is owned by the CPSU, or where a dam is extended over 2 or more states, or where the specified dam in one state is owned by another state. These are the three conditions where NDSA becomes the State Dam Safety Organizations for the purpose of the Act. So it means that all the CPSUs, maybe NHPC or THDC or NEPCO, or dams which are extended over 2 or more states, like in Uttarakhand, UP, or in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, or in West Bengal and Jharkhand. So there are a couple of dams which are falling under this criteria. Around 66 or so dams are coming under this criteria. So the NDSA becomes the SDSO, and so the jurisdiction of NDSA is are these 66 dams in the country which fall under this category. However, whenever NDSA is dealing with these dams which falls under the SDSO, they have to keep the state government informed. So basically, we have dam owning authorities, we have the State Dam Safety Organization which has a jurisdiction, we also have NDSA which has a jurisdiction on the dam. So out of the 6,000 plus dams which was mentioned yesterday, around 66 odd dams will be falling under the jurisdiction of NDSA. Remaining will go under the jurisdiction of the SDSOs of the states and UTs. Now, what can be the responsibilities of SDSOs and NDSA? They can go to any of the dam sites for making inspections. They are responsible for the various functions of SDSO. They are responsible as NDSA or SDSO, and they can go to any project, and if required, any investigations can be done, which the dam owning authority, dam owners have to implement. And any suggestions on any of the operational parameters or any such issues relating to the degradation or degeneration or any other impediments in the dam, the NDSA or the SDSO can advise the dam owners, and they have to implement that at their own cost. So that's what this section of jurisdiction of SDSO and NDSA speaks in the Act. Now there is one more aspect which was yesterday raised by one of the participants, that construction has not been touched upon in the Act. There is a specific section on construction of new dams, alteration of existing dams, or enlargement of existing dams. Now, what does alteration of existing dam mean? Alteration basically under the Act says that any repair you make to the dam or to the reservoir that endangers the safety of the dam or the reservoir is called as alteration. And there the NDSA or the SDSO has a role to play. Enlargement term is used in the Act, which means that you're changing the scope of the project of the dam by either raising the water levels or changing the volume of the reservoir, or any such change of scope comes under the word enlargement of dams. And construction is basically construction of new dams. So in all the three cases, it is stated that these should be carried out, that the investigations, the design, the construction should all be carried out by agencies which have been accredited by the NDSA or the state government. The system of accreditation has been brought into by this Act, which was not earlier there. And if NDSA so feels that the agency which is either constructing or designing is violating any of the provisions of the Act or the rules, they can very well disqualify the agency. And the agencies have some set of procedures to follow whenever they are designing the dam evaluating the dam safety, investigating, or they are trying to get the approval of the dam design, they need to have certain minimum standards which is prescribed in the act. And any approval of this specified dam or alteration or enlargement of this dam, approval of the competent authority has to be taken, which will be at the level of central government or the state government. So as far as the construction aspect is concerned, we have certain provisions which is mandatory for all the stakeholders to implement. Now, SDSO has certain functions to perform. It basically has been brought out in few of the sections 16 to 16, 17, 18, 19, 27. And it talks of keeping a surveillance of all the dams under its jurisdiction. And it can carry out the inspections, and it can also monitor the O&M of all these dams falling under the jurisdiction. And in case the SDSO feels that certain investigations or data collections are to be carried out related to any aspect of design or construction or repair, SDSO can direct the dam owners and implement whatever remedial measures are required for that. SDSO also has a responsibility of classifying the dams as per the vulnerability and hazard. Already for hazard, we have certain norms in the world over. Even in DRIP, we had certain norms, but whatever regulations are framed by NDSA, as per that, the criteria of vulnerability and hazard classification would come into place. Similarly, the SDSO has to maintain logbook or database for all the activities related to dam, and all the important historical events are to be recorded. Report of the failures, and then most important is we had last year issue where in the initial filling the dam failed in one of the states. Dam was just newly built and was about to be filled up, and during the initial filling the dam failed. There is a very clear provision in the act which says that whenever there is a new dam constructed after the enactment of the act, the initial filling of the reservoir has to be designed, and that has to be put up to the SDSO. SDSO will examine the initial filling program, and it may also visit the project site, and after that it will certify the fitness of the dam for filling. Had this procedure been followed, I don't think the mishap would have happened. Now we come to the dam owners. As I already mentioned, the prime responsibility lies with the dam owners for implementing the various provisions of the Act, and whatever instructions are received from the SDSO or the NDSA, they have to strictly comply with that. Most important thing in all this specified dam is that they should have a complete documentation of all the history of the dam, about the design, about the drawings, about the hydrology, dam foundation, structural engineering, about the problems encountered, foundation problems. Everything should be documented, and the completion certificate, if available, should be retrieved, and all this should be put in a state-of-art system so that anytime those documents can be retrieved, and it can be used for various purposes, for information, for taking action, or for the purpose of the dam safety review panels. Now, most of the dams in India, which are very old, it may be difficult to trace all these documents. Nevertheless, a sincere effort is required to trace all these documents and try to compile it and place it in a state-of-art system so that it is easily retrievable in future for various purposes. The dam owners have to put in place a O&M manual, and for that entire O&M establishment has to be in place, and depending on the dam, the geometry of the dam, the hazard potential, the vulnerability, the geographical positioning of the dam, and various other factors, O&M establishment should be placed of adequate number of people. We cannot fix this number for all the dams. Depends on the size of the dam as well, and other parameters. And there should be a O&M manual which should be kept at each of the dams and followed at all times. It's not that it is individual specific. There should be a SOP in place, and O&M manual should be the one in place for anybody who comes and goes. He has to follow the O&M manual. In the DRIP program, phase 1, various manuals, around 13 manuals and guidelines were prepared. And there is one guidelines for preparing operation maintenance manual for dams, which was released in January 2018. This would serve as a good guideline for the dam owners. They can use this or any other similar document and try to come up with their own O&M manual. We know that there are many dams where there are no O&M manuals, and under the Act they need to have a proper O&M manual in place. This guidelines which was prepared under DRIP phase 1. If you can see the contents which I have placed here, there are quite a lot of information about the project operations, and it talks about the various inspections to be carried out, and then about the maintenance aspects of the various components of the dam, starting from earthwork, upstream riprap in case of embankment dam, then vegetation, animal damage, or you can say ants and termites as well, then damage from vehicular traffic, or the concrete masonry dam and spillway outlet works, trash racks. So it has the maintenance related information for the various components, about the instrumentation monitoring, and then there is a chapter on updating the manual. So this may not be exactly for every dam, but this very well serves as a guideline, and it can be tailored to suit the requirement, and O&M manual can be developed for all the specified dams by the dam owners. Now, if we continue with this functions of dam owners, we have already discussed yesterday that a dedicated dam safety unit from among the O&M establishment has to be put in place. And there was a question raised about the size, the number of people. It's basically the competence of people which is more important for the dam safety unit. Their experience, the qualifications, and their competence to handle with the issues, that is more important. And the number would depend on the size of the project. And the regulations which is going to come out from the NDSA would speak on further on these issues. Now, the most important issue under section 31, which the dam owner has to give the maximum attention, is the inspections of the dam. There are basically 4 types of inspections. One is an informal inspection, which the officers or of the dam safety unit can, while traveling, go and see, okay, the gates are functioning okay, these are okay, there is a problem in the case of low level outlet. So they can visit the dam 1 or 2 parts. Whenever they go, they can come back and write down the notes on that. That is an that is called an informal inspection of the dam. Then we have scheduled inspection of dam, which can be a pre-monsoon and a post-monsoon inspections are the bare minimum. And in some states, we see that they are doing around 4 inspections a year, every year, meticulously. So the scheduled pre-monsoon and the post-monsoon inspections are very important. These are scheduled inspections, and you can have even more, is better. Then third category is the one where we have special or unscheduled inspection that normally is done during or after every extreme event like flood, earthquake, or any other natural or man-made calamities, or if any sign of distress is observed in the dam. So that is about the unscheduled or special, rather we say special inspections. And of course, we have the comprehensive dam safety inspection, which is carried out for all the components by involving an independent panel of experts. And these inspection reports are a very important document, and it gives us the vision and the way forward to address any of the deficiencies and go in for the remedial measures. Now, again, for this, we have a manual for safety inspection of dams. And this again talks of the comprehensive evaluation inspection, scheduled inspection, special inspection, and informal inspection in the chapter number 2. It talks of the inspection of embankment dams, concrete and masonry dam, and the various other appurtenances like spillways, outlets, mechanical equipment. It also has a chapter on visual inspection during using the ROVs. ROVs are one of the instruments which have been used for last 3 to 4 decades, wherein we send it. Underwater inspections are mostly done by ROVs, and we get a very good image of the condition of the dam without dewatering the project. Similarly, of late, unmanned aerial vehicle or drones are being used rather than man hanging through the rope on the upstream of the dam. It's better that we send the drones and then see that what is the position of the concrete surfaces, and other issues which can be seen by the drone can be conveniently handled through these equipments. And the documentation part is something which is brought out in these guidelines. And most important is Appendix B. If you see the Appendix B of this guideline, it talks about the scheduled dam safety inspection instructions and form. So this is a 45-page form, sort of a checklist, and which normally the dam safety review panel or any other inspections can take it, and it has all these parameters which are to be seen and evaluated towards the safety of the dam. So this again is one very good guideline for the dam owners to develop their own inspection manuals and implement the provisions of the Act. Now, a few more functions which I am putting here is about the instrumentation, which is one of the most important aspect. There should be minimum number of instruments in every dam, depending on the size and category of the dam. And these records are to be maintained, and after analysis, they need to be forwarded to SDSO for their review as well. The Act is also very clear in establishment of hydrometeorological station and seismological stations. In case where the dam height is more than 30 meters or it's falling under seismic zone, which the regulations will bring out, the need of a seismological station has been emphasized here for recording the micro and strong motion earthquakes. Now, again, we have another guidelines which talks about the various instruments to be used. How do you plan instruments for the embankment dams, concrete and masonry dams, for the seismic monitoring? Also, it talks of instrumentation on the existing dams, because the earlier constructed dams, they have where minimum or nil instrumentation, and it talks of how those dams can be instrumented to effectively capture most of the important parameters towards safety of the dam. It also talks of the hydrometeorological instrumentation and other aspects. So this also can serve as a guideline for preparation of your core instrumentation system for the dams by the dam owners. So these are few of the functions which I was mentioning here, which are very important and critical for the dam owners to really adopt. So now the most important thing which was discussed yesterday, it's the funds for the dam safety activities. Now, under the Act, it is the responsibility of the dam owner that he should earmark sufficient and specific funds for maintenance and repairs and implement whatever measures are to be taken. And even wherever NDSA or SDSO is suggesting for any investigations and remedial measures, even those have to be implemented and borne by the owner of the specified dam. Now, it is, as already mentioned yesterday, it is for the dam owners to make a convincing proposal on the criticality of the issues, on the essentiality of the issues, and try to see that sufficient funds are earmarked for the dam. In the regional workshops, which was conducted by NDSA last year, this was one of the major issues, that they don't have adequate funds for maintenance and repairs, besides staff being very less. Thereafter, the Government of India, Ministry of Jal Shakti also wrote to the secretaries of the various states to ensure adequate funds for earmarking towards the dam safety activities. Now, what is the scale of funds? I mean, if you see the three schemes, which was two of them which has been completed and one ongoing, if you see the initiatives taken in this by Government of India, for 33 dams, which was rehabilitated, and 182 dams basic facilities are provided, we had to incur 433 crores during this period of 91 to 99. Later, during 2012 to 21, under DRIP phase 1, the total expenditure incurred on the three project components for 223 dams, 80% of which was towards the dam rehabilitation, as mentioned yesterday. In 7 states, we had to spend around 2,642. And in the DRIP phase 2 and 3, for 21 to 31, which we have planned for a basket of 736 dams in 19 states and 3 central agencies, the total outlay is around 10,211 crores. So the scale of investment and funds required for the dam safety activities are certainly very large. Now, this hardly covers around 1,000 dams or so, but still we have another 5,000 dams, and you can imagine the allocation required by each of the states. Particularly the state which have a large number of dams, you need huge investments for this. So certainly there is a need to look into this aspect by the respective state governments. And yesterday, like Mr. Vijayan mentioned, he was mentioning about a national dam safety fund as well. So there is a need to look into this aspect of funding the dam safety activities in all the states and UTs. Now the next issue is about the emergency action plan and disaster management. Basically, in any emergency situation, whether it is a fire in the building or it's a fire in any market or it's a flooding, who does what, when, where, how? These are the questions. I mean, nobody knows what he's supposed to do and who is doing what. So basically, emergency action plan tells us what will be the plan of action whenever there is a emergency for the dam or the people downstream. So it's the obligation of the owner that he needs to prepare one emergency action plan, may it be before allowing the initial filling of the reservoir or later. And these EAPs, once made, has to be updated at regular intervals with more information flowing into the system. Under the Act, it is stated that the emergency action plan for all the specified dams have to be completed for at least the first EAP has to be completed within 5 years of the date of commencement of the Act. And for this, what are the ingredients that he needs? He needs to establish a well-designed hydrometeorological network a very good inflow forecasting system, emergency flood warning system, and all the scientific and technical instruments are to be in place. And he needs to carry out the risk assessment studies. Again, that has been mentioned that the first such study has to be made within 5 years from the date of commencement of the Act. Now, again, we have a guideline, and till such time regulations are in place, you have the guidelines, and it talks about the various elements of an EAP, and it talks about the whole flow chart about the event detection, whether it is an emergency or not. Then whether it's a blue level of emergency or orange level or red level. Blue level is the one where the situation is gradually deteriorating and there is no danger to dam or to the life of people. Orange is something where the emergency is rapidly developing and there can be a danger to the dam. And red one is immediate action because it is already the emergency has set in. So in terms of evacuation, if we see the red emergency level, we need to evacuate the people immediately. Orange emergency level, we need to prepare and keep the evacuation plan ready. And in blue, we have enough time to see that and take all the remedial actions. So the entire elements of an EAP are mentioned here, and using these guidelines, the dam owners can tailor-made their own EAPs for the dams, which should be readily available during any eventualities. Even the EAPs for 217 dams prepared under DRIP phase 1, the CPMU can assist the states and they can also be referred for preparation of the EAPs. Now then comes one more issue was to be mentioned, that what are things I already mentioned you, but there should be a consultative process with the disaster management authorities as well. The Act clearly says that this emergency action plan has to be prepared in consultation with the district authorities, other disaster management authorities, so that it is a comprehensive document and it can be the entire thing, who, how, what, and all is known to all the people who are to handle this situation of emergency in case of dam failure. Coming to the comprehensive dam safety evaluation, it is stated that every dam owner has to carry out this comprehensive analysis of the dam safety, which covers all the hydraulic aspects, structural aspects, geotechnical aspects, safety from the geological point of view, hydrology, hydromechanical, and preferably this has to be done through an independent panel of experts. And the Act also says that such first evaluation has to be done within 5 years. So it's a very tall order that we have in front of us for the 6,000 odd dams to be done in next 3.5 years time frame. Now, next question is regarding at what frequency or regular intervals we need to update this. That is something which the NDSA has to bring out in the regulations. But it is seen that the comprehensive dam safety evaluation is world over is reviewed varying from 5 to 30 years. While Japan reviews it every 30 years, Switzerland does it in 5 years. China, Canada, and all they do between 5 to 10 years. So the regulations will bring out. Nevertheless, the very first evaluation has to be done within 5 years from the date of commencement of the Act. And it has also been made mandatory in certain cases, which is mentioned here. Now, as far as the dam safety review panel is concerned, normally what we say is world over, we say there is something called 4 eyes principle. 2 eyes are the dam owners. They have their internal assessment. They do their internal supervision. They take all the precautions internally. But there should be 2 external eyes to evaluate the dam. And that is the independent panel of experts. And they should it normally has a chairman who has a broad experience, vast experience of various interdisciplinary issues. And then we have domain experts in this. May it be a dam design expert, maybe geotechnical, instrumentation, hydrology, seismic, hydraulics, and other experts are there in this. And when we see the number of dams to be done in the next 3.5 years, it is necessary that the states may need more than one dam safety review panel to have a comprehensive review of all the specified dams. And in the state like Maharashtra, where we have almost 2,000 plus dams, it's certainly a very huge task for comprehensive evaluation for all the specified dams within this timeline. And basically what the evaluation does is briefly mentioned here, and I did not elaborate on this thing. But the report should be quite exhaustive. It is basically the assessment of the conditions based on the visual observations and the available data, and focusing on design, hydrology, construction, operation, maintenance, and performance. And that is to be followed by the recommendations. And these recommendations which come out of the comprehensive safety evaluation needs to be implemented by the dam owner. And SDSO has to ensure that dam owner implements these recommendations well within time so that no untoward incident takes place. In the eventuality of the dam owner and the independent panel of experts differing, the matter will go to the State Dam Safety Organization. And even if SDSO cannot bring the two parties to an agreement, then the matter goes to the National Dam Safety Authority, and the word of the NDSA is final, and the dam owner has to implement it. Normally, the issues come. Many issues are there where dam owner feels a different way. For example, if there is seepage from the dam, some prefer to go for the grouting of the upstream phase or pointing, and some prefer for entire membrane to be placed. So there are various such similar things in gates and other hydromechanical equipments too. There are issues where there is difference of opinion between the dam owners and the experts. So it is finally the NDSA which has the final say in such difference of opinion. Now, there is one chapter on offenses and penalties, which normally nobody would like to invoke. But nevertheless, we need to know what are the provisions in this. Whenever an NCDS, NDSA, or SDSO or SCDS officials are visiting in a specified dam, any obstruction or any refusal to comply any of the directions is punishable under the Act. And if such obstruction or refusal to comply leads to loss of life, then the that imprisonment also goes up to 2 years. So this is mentioned in the chapter under offenses. Now, if it is committed by a department of government, then the head of the department shall be deemed to be guilty of the offense and shall be liable to be prosecuted, unless it is proved that it was committed without his knowledge, or he has exercised all the due diligence to prevent the commission of such offense. And when it is proved that there has been some connivance or some negligence on the part of any officer other than the head of the department, then such officer is deemed to be guilty and liable to be prosecuted. When it comes to the companies, the Act says the company is deemed to be guilty of the contravention. And when it comes to any officer, director, manager, so company along with that director, manager, secretary is deemed to be guilty of that offense and shall be proceeded against and punished accordingly. Towards the end, regarding the cognizance of offenses, it's clear that no court shall take cognizance of any offense punishable under this Act, except on a complaint made by the central government or the state government. So we wish that these provisions are rarely invoked or not invoked. And I'm sure the dam owners will take all due care and precautions and implement the provisions of the Dam Safety Act diligently. Now, there is one provision that the SDSO and the NDSA have to submit annual reports. Like SDSO has to prepare an annual report within 3 months of the expiry of the preceding financial year, and it needs to be submitted and laid before each house of the state legislature, where it consists of 2 houses, or where such legislature consists of 1 house before that house. Similarly, NDSA also has to finalize its annual report within 6 months of the expiry of the preceding financial year, and lay it before each house of the parliament. So it's important that all the activities of the year are compiled by the dam owners, given to SDSOs. SDSOs also provide the information to NDSA, so that SDSO and NDSA can timely lay the annual report before the respective. Now, the last thing which is most important is, under every section of the Act, it says that as may be specified by regulations. And these are the regulations which are to be framed by NDSA. And NDSA has the powers to make regulations, and they have already finalized few regulations and submitted to the ministry. And basically, section 54 of the Act speaks about this. Around 20 items they have listed, and I just briefly read some of these. It says that the NDSA has to lay down guidelines, standards, and other directions for achieving satisfactory level of dam safety assurance. It talks that of vulnerability and hazard classification criteria of specified dams. It also says that NDSA has to make regulations for details and form pertaining to maintenance of logbooks or database. If we go down, it also has to lay down regulations on quality control measures for the purpose of dam construction. Again, level of competent engineers for the dam safety units, which we have been discussing. Then it talks of the data requirements at the hydrometeorological stations, at the seismological stations. It talks of the minimum number of set of instrumentations. Again, most important, which we're discussing about the time interval to carry out risk assessment studies, time interval for updating the emergency action plan, time interval for comprehensive safety evaluation of specified dams. And the second last one is important here: measures necessary to ensure dam safety by every owner of dam other than specified dams. So even that is mentioned in the section 54 of this Act about the framing of regulations. Now, till such time the regulations are in place, we already have several guidelines already prepared under the RIP phase 1 program, and that can act as a very good support document for the various dam owners to proceed. And I hope the regulations would be also coming into place at the earliest from NDSA. The guidelines which already yesterday was presented, I just repeat here for the sake of emphasis. And this covers various aspects, including the hydraulic and structural safety of the existing dam. And it talks about the EAPs, it talks about O&M manuals and other related aspects. So with this, I think the entire functions, duties, and responsibilities of dam owning authorities I've tried to present in a capsule form. Any questions, I would be welcome. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very comprehensive and very crystal clear presentation, sir. It's always an honor and privilege to have you in our programs. Any queries? In fact, I have seen such queries. If Mr. Adeline Sun is there, he can speak and raise his query. Otherwise, I will read it.
Sir, good
Can
morning,
you-
sir. So actually, since you have mentioned about retrieving drawings and documentation, now some of the dams in our state are very old. They are very constructed way back in the 1960s. And we have done much effort in retrieving back the construction drawings which are done during that time, but we could not, sir. So my question is that, is there any method to scan the structure, especially the concrete dam structure, so that we can draw it and then take it for another, maybe review it, the design? That's my question, sir.
Can you introduce yourself?
So I'm Adeline Sunsa from Meghalaya.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be a very common problem. It's a very good question you asked, because the documentation has been rather very poor in our country, and in most of the dams which are 50, 60 years old, it's difficult to retrieve them. But nevertheless, whatever available with then designers, then planners in any of your offices, sincere effort can be made on that. But then if you don't have, then the only thing is you need to have your own data creation based on whatever tools we have in the modern times, and try to fit into your documentation. There's no other way that we can really come back with the drawings which are already damaged or weeded out by your departments. Now, again, what happens is one more issue is a connected issue with that. Now we say specified dam, a project which had difficult foundation problems. There may be many projects which had difficult foundation problems, but if you don't have the documents, if you don't have the history, if you don't have the completion report of that project, then you won't be able to really classify. Only for geometrical angle, you can, okay, by geometry of the dam, you can classify it. But did it really have a difficult foundation problem? Will only come out from the documentation. Like today, we know a project like Polavaram, which is coming up as a terminal structure in the state of Andhra Pradesh, has a lot of foundation issues. I'm sure there'll be good documentation of that, so that we know that what was the problem and what was done in that project. So I agree with you that many of the dams which are then built, either it may be with the designers who did, and they may or may not be there at this stage, at this point in time. So we need to use the latest tools and see whatever available and try to create the records for that. That's the only way we can address that.
Thank you, sir. I hope our queries are satisfied. One of the queries from Mr. Prashant Kumar Verma ji is which river training structure comes under the Dam Act?
Pardon?
Sir, the query from Prashant Kumar Verma ji is which river training structure comes under the Dam Safety Act?
Yes. So I was expecting this. Basically, when I mentioned energy dissipation arrangement and the river training structure, I was expecting this question. And basically, integral to the dam, the river training structure which is built downstream, integral to the dam, that's the one. I mean, it's not that we are talking of a kilometer, 2 kilometers down a river training structure. So it is basically river training structure which is built integrally with the dam. Next is Pratibha Kumari ji is saying, what is volume content of the dam? Yes. I think it was mentioned in that one of the criteria when it is between 10 to 15 meter high. What is the volume content? 1 million cubic meter. I hope that is a question, or any other question. If there is something else, you can speak out.
One else who wants to raise a query?
Mr. Sanjeev Yadav has raised an hand. Mr. Yadav can speak, please. Sanjeev Yadav, please make your microphone on and speak.
So, good morning, sir.
Yes.
Sir, when we prepare comprehensive data safety evaluation, is there any emergency funds for specified dams, sir? Because all our dams are.
Can you introduce yourself? Kindly introduce yourself so we know from which part of the country you are speaking.
Is it
There's a break. Not audible. There's a break in your voice.
sir? It's audible, sir. So when we prepare a comprehensive dam safety evaluation, is there any emergency fund?
Hello. Sir, myself Sanjeev Yadav from NHDC Limited, Bhopal.
Just a minute. I just one question already regarding the emergency fund. I mean that as of now, it's the state government which has to pitch in during emergency situation with their funds. As of now, there is no sort of a fund which is which can be given by the government of India to the state government emergency basis. It's basically the drip funds which are there, which is for your routine 4 components of the scheme. You're talking of emergency situation wherein you need the emergency fund, may it be a foundation or any other issues. So I think the state government has to pitch in. Yeah, Mr. Sunil Kumar.
Consult with our dam safety authority, sir. State dam safety organizations. Because you have
Yes.
informed that we obtained from SDSOs only, sir.
Yes, you have your SDSO has to address that issue.
Sir, may I ask my question now?
Yes, please.
Yes. So my question is that comprehensive dam safety evaluation we have to do in the 5 years after the implementation of the act. Then the expert panel has been constituted, or how we can do it? How we can
See,
approach?
You need to first and foremost is you need to have an independent panel of experts as per the act, and that has to carry out. You need to fix your panel of experts maybe for one dam, if it is you have one major dam, or you can have a cluster of dams for which you can have this DSRP constituted, and you have to provide all the information. Yeah, let me finish. You have to provide all the information to them well in advance, and then they will inspect the project, and based on that, they will come out with their observations. And like Dr. Pandya said yesterday, people look forward immediate solutions. No, they will make recommendations first, and that those recommendations may be further investigations, or it can be solutions. And then based on that, you need to go ahead and implement. And the criticality of issues are also mentioned by the panel. What is more serious to be addressed? In some dam, we see that the foundation is undermining is going on. That seems to be most important compared to any other minor problems in the concrete surfaces. So the DSRP would evaluate it and try to portray the entire health of the dam, and you need to proceed ahead with the remedial solutions. Yeah.
Okay, sir. But sir, one more question. When we do the dam safety inspection, the reports has to be submitted to NDSA. It was informed in the meeting held on 11th November 2022 in Pune. But we are not getting the access where to submit that. Can we have that?
Yes, I'm sure there will be
We are under CPSEs, so we have to submit to NDSA also. Also, we have submitted to SDSO. But if we are supposed to submit to NDSA, then we are not finding the access. I mean, the portal where we could.
Okay, I mean, being a CPSU, you come under the jurisdiction of NDSA. So certainly your first submission has to be to the NDSA, and then the state also has to be kept informed, SDSO and the state government. See, you can straight away contact Central Water Commission member DNR or the Chief Engineer, Mr. Vijay Sharan, and they will tell you where to submit it, the portal and whatever mail ID they will give you. So as a CPSU, your first task is to submit to the NDSA. And as a dam owner, you need to take all the remedial actions immediately.
Okay, that we are taking, but actually we are supposed to. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. You are from NHDC, you said.
I'm NHDC Bhopal.
Okay, fine.
So there is a query from Shri Prasad. Can the comprehensive dam safety inspection carried out through DSRP fulfill the criteria of comprehensive dam safety evaluation as per the Act?
Okay, Mr. Shiv Prasad, can the comprehensive dam safety inspection carried out through DSRP fulfill the criteria of? Yes, if the DSRP has carried out the inspection as per what is been mentioned in the Act, it would be fulfilling. I mean, if it's all fulfilling whatever conditions have been laid down by the.
सर नमस्कार, मैं राघवेंद्र कुमार गुप्ता बोल रहा हूँ NHPC लिमिटेड से। क्या मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको?
हाँ, आ रही है, बताइए।
हाँ सर, ये इसी लाइन में मैं एक प्रश्न पूछना चाह रहा हूँ। DSRP जो अभी तक होता आ रहा था और CDSE जब जो होना है अब एक्ट के हिसाब से, इन दोनों में क्या फर्क है? क्योंकि अभी बोला जा रहा है कि आप DSRP वाली गाइडलाइन को ही फॉलो कर लीजिए, तो इसमें ऐसा क्या एक्स्ट्रा है CDSE में, उस पर थोड़ा हाईलाइट करेंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा। उसी हिसाब से फिर हमको आगे जो CDSE करना है उस पर हमको सुविधा होगी।
अगर आप देखेंगे आपका जो comprehensive dam safety evaluation में regarding the independent panel of expert, it says that the NDSA will lay down some regulations for that independent panel of experts. Earlier, whatever DSRP was there, that was basically for the DRIP. It was under the DRIP program. The dam safety DSRP was there. Even for Mr. Shiv Prasad, I'm replying, and for his question as well. That as per this Act, NDSA has been given some powers to come out with regulations on the independent panel of experts, and so based on those regulations, NDSA would be in a better position to tell you about this, whether you can continue with the previous DSRP or you need to have a new DSRP as per their directions.
सर वो मैं आपकी बात समझ गया कि NDSA से हमको संपर्क करना है, वो हम टच में भी हैं, बट क्योंकि आप उस वक्त जब ये एक्ट आया था उस समय आप काफी सीनियर पोजीशन में मेरे ख्याल में मेंबर थे आप उस वक्त, तो इसलिए आपका इसमें जब फॉर्म हुआ होगा तब आपका योगदान रहा होगा। इसलिए मैं आपके मन की बात जानना चाह रहा हूँ कि DSRP तो चल ही रहा था हर 5 साल का, अब ये पहले 5 साल में इसको करने को बोल दिया है कि साहब CDSE करना है, और एक चीज पे हर बार जब भी मीटिंग होती थी तो एवेल्यूएशन और रिव्यू, इन दोनों के बीच में कुछ डिफरेंस है, वो मैं जानना चाह रहा हूँ कि क्या मन में था जब ये एक्ट बनाया गया, जब ये फॉर्म किया गया, तब क्या मन में था कि एवेल्यूएशन में ऐसी क्या चीज ज्यादा होनी चाहिए रिव्यू के ऊपर, ये चीज मैं समझना चाह रहा हूँ। बाकी हम संपर्क में तो रहेंगे ही उनके NDSA के।
अच्छा, आपने जो कहा, मुझे पहले DSRP की मींस आप जो है कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव डैम रिव्यू डैम इवैल्यूएशन की बात कर रहे हैं, मुझे लगा आप कमेटी की बात कर रहे हैं। आप जो कह रहे हैं कि आपने पहले ही एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव डैम सेफ्टी रिव्यू कर लिया है, यू हैव ऑलरेडी डन वन रिव्यू, एंड इफ इट वाज बिफोर द एक्ट, I don't think that would be taken cognizance. You need to carry out under the provisions of the Act a fresh comprehensive dam safety review in the first 5 years of the Act, because there are whatever earlier was being done, it was meeting the requirements of the various provisions of World Bank and the DRIP program, but it was not. It may or may not be fulfilling the requirements of the Act. So, and as such, the Act says that within first 5 years after the enactment of the Act, every dam should have one comprehensive. So, the previous one would not stand. You need to have a fresh comprehensive dam safety review within this first 5 years post enactment of the Act.
ठीक सर, मैं अगेन
Does this clarify your point?
No sir.
not
एक्चुअली
yet.
जब भी आप भी थे 2 मीटिंग में, जब चंडीगढ़ में हुई थी और गुवाहाटी में हुई थी, तब बड़े एम्फेटिकली इसको बोला गया था कि साहब ये जो है ना, एवेल्यूशन शब्द का कोई मतलब है ना, एंड एवेल्यूशन इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम रिव्यू। ये दोनों बार इसमें बोली। ये चलिए इसको हम देखेंगे अब एनडीएसए से करके। बट एक बात और बताएं कि अगर आपकी जानकारी में किसी ने अभी सीडीएसई किया हो एनएक्टमेंट के बाद में, तो थोड़ा हमें जानकारी दें, हम उनसे संपर्क करके देखते हैं क्या उन्होंने ऐसा अलग से क्या किया डीएसआरपी के अलावा।
जब तक मैं था तब तक मेरे नॉलेज में कोई आया नहीं जिसने कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव डैम सेफ्टी इवैल्यूएशन किया हो। बट उसके बाद इन रिसेंट पास्ट में आप विजय शरण जी से कांटेक्ट कर लीजिए, शायद वो बता पाएंगे किसी ने किया हो, तो ही कैन हेल्प यू ऑन दैट। ठीक है
सर, थैंक यू।
थैंक यू।
सर मैं जीएनके से चंडीगढ़ में मीटिंग हुई थी, तो वहाँ जनाबी चेयर कर रहे थे, तो वहाँ ये डिसाइड हुआ था कि
आवाज नहीं आ
किसी के प्रोजेक्ट
आई कांट हियर, कैन यू बी लाउड? हाँ बोलिए।
गुड मॉर्निंग सर। सर चंडीगढ़ में जो मीटिंग आपने चेयर की थी, वहाँ ये डिसाइड हुआ था जो एनएचपीसी के प्रोजेक्ट हैं उनकी इंस्पेक्शन और उनकी रिपोर्ट वो सीधा एनडीएसए को ही जाएगी, और रिगार्डिंग दिस इशू हम क्लैरिफिकेशन एक वो डालेंगे। लेकिन सर वो क्लैरिफिकेशन अभी तक आई नहीं है, तो अभी भी वो प्रोजेक्ट की इंस्पेक्शन और रिपोर्टिंग वगैरह वो डायरेक्ट एनडीएसए को करते हैं, वो स्टेट को नहीं करते हैं।
नहीं, मैं थोड़ी सी आवाज शुरू में आई नहीं, क्या आप कैन यू रिपीट अगेन? बीच में आवाज कट गई है मुझे। हेलो
सर पिछले साल चंडीगढ़ में मीटिंग हुई थी जो आपने चेयर की थी, तो वहाँ ये डिसाइड हुआ था जेएनके में जो एनएचपीसी के प्रोजेक्ट हैं उनकी इंस्पेक्शन मॉनिटरिंग वगैरह वो डायरेक्ट जो रिपोर्ट होगी वो एनडीएसए को भेजेंगे, तो वो हमारे साथ यानी कि स्टेट में वो शेयर नहीं करते हैं। तो जनाब ने बोला था कि रिगार्डिंग दिस इशू हम एक क्लैरिफिकेशन इशू करेंगे, वो अभी तक नहीं हुई।
अच्छा, ओके। ये मैटर आपने जो लिखा है स्पेसिफिक एनडीएसए को लिखा, तो एनडीएसए हैज टू टेक केयर ऑफ दैट रिस्पांस। बट नेवरदलेस आपको ऐसा, आप जे के पीडीसी से हैं आप?
जी जेके पीडीसी से।
जेके पीडीसी से मैं देख रहा हूँ यहाँ पे आप जेके पीडीसी से हैं, तो यू बिकम you fall under the jurisdiction of NDSA. So you have to submit the documents to NDSA because you fall under their jurisdiction. However, you also need to keep the state government informed about this issue and the state STS also. But आपका जो report है mainly NDSA will has to respond on that query.
तो
what you have
हमारी दिस डैम यूनिट जो है एसडीएसओ और स्टेट कमेटी ऑन डैम सेफ्टी, वी आर लुकिंग आफ्टर ओनली डैम्स ऑफ जेएंडके स्टेट, not of any PSUs.
Absolutely. I mean, यही तो कह रहा हूँ मैं आपका, you have to submit, you have
Yes,
to,
we are submitting timely, sir.
yeah, you have to submit to NDSA, and then also keep a copy to the state government for their information. So they also
So
are kept informed.
only clarification regarding PSU that they will submit their inspection and other report directly to NDSA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
There is a query from Mr. Saju. Sir, is there any specific guidelines for health monitoring of dams?
Now, Mr. Saju is asking about health monitoring of dams.
Yes.
What is the
guideline?
Yeah. So basically, health of a dam can be the hydraulic health, it can be the structural health, it can be the geotechnical health. So we have separate guidelines how to evaluate the hydraulic safety of the dam, how to evaluate the structural safety of the dam. Then we have for the other geotechnical issues, hydromechanical. So there is no one guideline which says for health monitoring of dam. The various aspects are covered in the different guidelines, which the 13 guidelines, if you go through them, you can get a couple of the issues already in those guidelines. Apart from that, we have some CWC guidelines as well as ICOLD guidelines as well. So by the term health monitoring of dams, we don't have any specific guidelines by that terminology.
So in fact, there are multiple guidelines on that.
Yes. Because hydraulic safety itself is a big aspect. Then we have the structural safety of dam, that is a huge aspect. And then we have the foundation and other geotechnical and geological aspects. So it cannot be covered into one specific guideline.
So there is another query, whether there is any specification for qualification of dam operators in the Dam Safety Act. Their eligibility criteria or specialization, etc. Perhaps.
In the Dam Safety Act, there is no mention of any qualification or experience of any of the positions in the dam safety ecosystem. It is only by virtue of the regulations that will come what should be the qualification, what should be the experience for the people in the dam safety unit. So Act per se would not say anything about the qualification and has not said. It's a general act which says as may be specified in the regulations. So once NDSA comes out with the regulations, then you will have those qualifications and experience.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wants to raise any query? He can speak. Someone wants to speak, he can unmute himself and speak. I think that's all, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. It was very, very interactive and served the intended purpose for which this webinar is being conducted. And we are grateful to you, sir, for a very, very enriching session. And thanks a lot. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chaskar. Thank you very much, Mr. Pande. Thanks a lot. And thanks to all the distinguished participants for their proactive participation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have shared a feedback form in the chat box. Towards the end of this webinar, you can fill it and send to us. Thank you. And the next session is by Dr. B.R.K. Pillai, sir, Chief Engineer, Human Resources Management, Central Water Commission, New Delhi. And his topic is Journey of Legal and Institutional Framework for Dam Safety in India and Way Forward. So he will sum up also the proceedings in a way. And before I invite him, I would like to briefly mention about his experience and expertise. He is a very, very well-known orator and very articulate in Central Water Commission cadre. Dr. Pillai is a water resources engineering and management professional with over 34 years experience in diverse areas of water sector. The key exposure has been in the area of dam safety, hydropower, and irrigation, while areas of drinking water, drainage, and flood control have also been dealt with. He has distinguished academic qualifications in technical as well as managerial areas. He did MTech in structural engineering from IIT Delhi. He has also done MBA in finance, followed by a PhD in stakeholder management from Faculty of Management Studies, MS University, Baroda. He has published papers on various strategic issues of water sector and has also co-authored a book for Class 12 published by NCERT. He has varied experience of working in different organizations such as NHPC, Narmada Control Authority, Sardar Sarovar Construction Advisory Committee, etc. In addition, his experience in CWC covers a broad spectrum of water resources sector dealing with national level planning, design, and appraisal of water resources projects. He spearheaded and guided the draft of the Central Dam Safety Act 2010 He has experience in analysis and design of structures using conventional and FEM techniques, and has also dealt in varied areas of dam safety related issues. As project director of the DRIP project, Dam Rehabilitation and Improvement Project, he coordinated and supervised World Bank funded scheme. Dr. Pillai has occupied crucial positions during different tenures and handled diverse management issues. He has also been associated with formulation of some of the HR policies of Central Water Commission. He has also been engaged in the development of dam health and rehabilitation monitoring application, Dharma, which is an important tool for dam safety inspection and asset management. It's an honor and privilege to welcome you, sir. Thank you, sir, for being with us, and we look forward to a very enriching session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shailendra. Am I audible, Shailendra, if you can confirm?
Yes, sir, very clear.
Okay. Thank you once again. Let me just share the slide first. Okay. Since this is practically the last session of this two-day webinar, and it's a very focused topic, and I understand practically everything would have been already, dealt with. In any case, Dam Safety Act is it's a document. It's a well readable document. It's not very complicated document to read through, and an elaborate job already has been done about explaining each and every clause of that act. I mean, the last session I was lucky to hear from Shri Chandrashekhar Iyer. I think he has gone very deeply into all the critical, clauses. So probably there is not much for me to tell you what the Dam Safety Act is. So knowing that I'll be, in that kind of a scenario, I thought that instead of talking more about what, I will talk more about why part of the Dam Safety Act. So I digged into some of my old presentation, and that's what I am going to share. Of course, I'll be connecting with the Dam Safety Act wherever it makes sense, and ultimately, finally, we will touch on the Dam Safety Act part also. But the question, like last few questions which were, there, maybe this the aspect which I am going to touch upon will be able to throw some more light on issues like why dam safety evaluation rather than, review. That kind of a questions will easily get answered when we go through the whole talk today, provided you have patience to bear with me till that point of time. So we will be able to address all those questions. And I want to make it very clear that generally I prefer, this kind of interaction more in a closed one-to-one interactive manner rather than in a kind of a webinar, because everything remains, kind of a, lacks clarity, and there is always a risk of, what you saying and what is being understood being interpreted. So that kind of a risk is very much there. So my request to all of you will be that whatever we carry forward from this today is try to have clarity. I mean, if you have questions, please make sure that you ask those questions. Even if you interrupt me and ask that question, I'll be happy to answer, rather than trying to convey something which I really don't intend to be speaking about that. So I don't want any misinterpretation. So please help me in that process. So we will straightway begin from this thing. Basically, way ahead is something which I had embedded, but we will talk less about it. Why part we will be talking more about it. And of course, there is a timeline constraint, so I will not be touching my whole of presentation slide. I'll be skipping through most of it, and I'll just try to highlight only where I can directly draw a connection between what I'm saying and the act. Okay, so before we proceed, I mean, since I have seen that there are some students also, and then we have the whole basket of all kind of professionals connected with dam safety who are here, I would like to touch upon some basic thing, very, very fundamental things. And that's where this first slide is. Basically, I want to make a statement here that the dams are complex structure. Many a time, this is something which people do not understand exactly how exactly they are complex, because I have seen people who, even when they stand on the dam, probably they may not be even aware that they are standing on the dam. And many aspects of the dam, they don't see it as complex as probably which I will be seeing when I encounter those situations. For me, the complexity is because of the degree of unknownness. Okay, it's not because of the build of the structure being very complex or the size being big, or no such factors. The complexity is because of the unknownness. Like making a bund kind of a structure, it's not very complex in even making of the process. But once it is standing there, impounding a huge reservoir, then the complexity starts creeping in. That complexity is essentially in terms of how much we do not know. I mean, the degree of unknownness is making the structure complex. So this is something which I always emphasize all of our practicing professionals and upcoming engineers to keep in mind, that your confidence with dam should be always slightly on the shaky ground. You should not presume that you know already. Okay, so that means there has to be a query, a inquiry all the time going on, and that is something which I want to underline. And whatever I am saying here is, please note that we have tried to build up all this in the Dam Safety Act. Second point which I want to again make a statement, only a simple statement, by which basically reads no unsafe dams. Now this is something which looks very contradictory, because we are talking about a Dam Safety Act, and at the same time I am using a terminology that there is no question of we having unsafe dams. The reason is simple. What exactly dam is? I mean, dam, is it only a structure, or does it connect with something else also? The dam has to be, seen together with the impoundment. If simply we having a dam and there is no impoundment, it's only a structure. That's not in the terminology of dam, which if you read the definition, you will be able to understand that there is a functionality attached with the definition of the dam in the act. And even in the case of dam failure, we make it very clear that a failure of the structure is not dam failure unless it has a consequences in terms of outflow of water. So if we have a dam and suppose it is standing there without having any impoundment, and it fails for some reason, which happened in case of our Kutch earthquake, there were many dams, and at least a couple of them were large dams, and they failed. Actually, they failed during the earthquake process, but they never enter into our register of dam failures, because at that point of time there was no impoundment in those dams. So it's very important to understand that when we talk of the dam, we have to see the dam, we say together with the impoundment, and in that context is exactly this statement very important. So it's like you have a ship in the harbor and it fails, it sinks there. Actually, there is no failure there as far as the ship is concerned, because the ship has to be in the middle of the sea. A plane which is grounded, and if it fails, it's not really a plane failure. Only when it is in the sky, that's where the question of failure comes. Same is the case with dams. Okay, if a dam is structurally not supposed to fill up, then we should not fill up the dam. Okay, that's what it is. If the dam is filled up, actually with our knowledge, we should basically talk about it as a safe dam only. And the moment we know that this safety factor is coming down, we should reduce the the pondage of the dam to bring it back to the safe level. That should be the fundamental. Okay, we cannot simply use this word very glorified manner and start shooting out the statistics talking about so many unsafe dam and all that. Please, that is something which we have to be always guarded about. We cannot start talking simply look at a dam and say based on some distress condition and declare it as unsafe. If it is to be declared as unsafe, it's better we bring down the impoundment and make sure that it is declared as a safe dam. Okay. Now, the third point I'm basically mentioning is that despite having stated all this, I still want to say that dams have risk and hazard potential. Now, even the safest dam has a risk and hazard potential. You can never say that it is a risk-free or hazard-free. Okay, whatever kind of dam you are building it up, you have to still all the time have to believe, yes, it has a risk and hazard potential. Now, these two things happen primarily in terms of the risk. One is that there is a likely of dam failure. Okay, that is a probabilistic thing. You may have it very low probability, but you will never have a zero probability. Okay, so risk is always there. Secondly, there is a factor of consequences, that in case it fails, how much damage or death it may cause. That is a totally different factor. These two are not correlated. Okay, means having a high probability of failure doesn't mean it will have high consequences. There is no correlation. Okay, we may have a high probability of failure and practically minimal consequences, and it can be the other way around also. So these two terminology is something which has gone deep into, you know, framing of the Dam Safety Act. It is practically the DNA of the whole Dam Safety Act. One more important thing which I want to cover in this slide is about the risk aversion. Why we started talking about all this has something to relate with society's perception about the risk aversion. It's a social factor. Okay. Now that risk aversion is something which is not easily understood, because what happens is, suppose we talk about in terms of, you know, the loss to life in terms of road accident. In India itself, it runs something like 2.5 or 3 lakhs in a year. That many people, you know, die in road accident every year. It's a fact. It's something which we know because it keeps on coming in the news item. Even there are published, you know, statistics about it, but it doesn't raise that kind of a, you know, alarm bell in our mind. But if incidents like the recent train accident, or in case a dam failure happens where maybe 100 odd people die, there is suddenly a huge kind of an alarm which gets, you know, raised. Why this kind of a, you know, disparity which is happening between these two scenarios, where on one side lakhs of people are dying and we are, you know, least bothered, and at the same time maybe 100 or couple of 100 people dying and suddenly we become very alarmed. This, you know, situation is arising because of the event related understanding of risk aversion. You know, we perceive things in terms of, you know, more risky or less risky in terms of the event. If a single event is causing, you know, larger consequences, means say large number of death from a single event, then obviously we treat that as a high risk, you know, venture. So going by that sense, strictly speaking, we can easily classify dams as high risk hazard. Okay, that is how it goes, because dams maybe can be rated as next to a nuclear power plant. That much, you know, risk potentials are there with our dams. So if that is the case, okay, then we have to also understand the kind of, you know, the documentation and the kind of, you know, institutional mechanism which we are building up through the Dam Safety, you know, Act. We have to keep that also in mind. Okay, coming to this particular slide here, I'm just sharing simple, very simple 3 definitions. And I believe that any student of dam safety or any professional has to keep this in mind, because ultimately everything is, you know, moving around these 3 definitions only. The first definition I am talking about is the distress. Now, distress is in the dam structure. It is in the very much, you know, the whole complex. Dam structure is not only that which is sitting as a dam. It can involve many other things, like even the rim of the reservoir is also part of the dam only. Okay, so the distress in these part, you know, the main dam body or any saddle dam or any part of the reservoir rim or any apartment structure, if there is a distress, you know, that is what we basically talk about, means a condition which can eventually lead to some kind of a failure and can cause, you know, all this a hazard. That is what the distress, but it is in the body. Okay, it is there. It is always there. Maybe it started happening right from the time of, you know, investigation, where we, you know, ignored some geological conditions. Now that distress has got embedded there because the designer never had the insight to account for that distress. So that distress is very much there. It is embedded into the dam, and the dam may be standing there even for 100 years, but the distress is very much there. You have to appreciate what I'm saying here, that distress per se is not the cause of failure at this point of time. Okay, but it is embedded in the dam. The second definition is the threat. Now, threat is external. It has nothing to do with the dam as such. It is coming from outside. You know, it can be in the form of a flood event, it can be in the form of a seismic event, it may be a landslide, it can be even something which is a man-made activity, you know, too many traffic going on the spillway bridge, or people, you know, using certain part of the, you know, reservoir rim for activities which can cause, you know, harm to the, all this is a threat, you know, man-made, animal-made, or natural things. They all are threatened, they are external. Now the combination of two situations, okay, which is again probabilistic, okay, that is what can cause failure. Okay, remaining these two in a isolation is not the cause of the failure. When they come and combine in a certain manner, that's when the failure happens. And understanding that methodology is the failure mode analysis. So what is very vital is that when you come across a failure, that is the best place from where you can have more learning in terms of understanding the failure mode mechanism. Okay, now if we have a tendency, which I have seen in most of our cases, that there is a tendency to, you know, wrap up or push it under the carpet, ye to ho gaya, event ho gaya. If you don't build up the learning come out of that failure, then there is not much gain. Okay, it's very important to actually highlight all the failures, put them, you know, upfront. You know, it's nothing wrong in, you know, doing that process. And if you look at the Dam Safety Act, this is something which we have, you know, underlined. It's something very vital for the success of the whole Dam Safety Act. Okay, so these three definitions only keep in mind, and then we can go to the next one. Now here I'm talking about dam safety management. The terminology, maybe not many of the, you know, other Dam Safety Act would have used this the way we have used it. And in fact, I want to underline one factor to here, that when we were working on this Dam Safety Act, something in 18 years back when we started. Okay, when the first Central Dam Safety Act, means before that, almost 25 years back, we were talking about the need for legislation, and a state level model act was also circulated by Central Water Commission. But at some point of time, we realized that is not going to work, and we started talking about the Central Dam Safety Act. At that time, when I got associated, it was very vital for us to, you know, bring a translation from pure engineering to something else, you know. And the management word actually started happening in many of my slides, even much before, when we were, you know, in a serious, you know, process of putting the, you know, document or the bill in front of the parliament. Even before, we were talking about concept of dam safety management, which is very different from a subject like, say, dam safety engineering. That fundamental difference between management and engineering is that engineering is a problem focused, whereas management is solution focused. Okay, so when we find a solution, it need not be even engineering. Okay, we can always find a solution which may not go through the process of engineering, something which I'll try to highlight when we go through the rest of the slides also. So we have embedded this word. If you go through the act, somewhere in the role, the functions of the National Committee on Dam Safety, this is coming exactly the way I have embedded here. These slides are much older, but basically we are saying that the think tank, that the National Committee on Dam Safety, will basically focus the whole activity for the national level activity as a dam safety management, which is defined as an integration of safety evaluation, risk assessment, and risk management. Okay, these three keywords have been used here. So we evaluate, then we evaluate the safety, then we assess the risk associated with that. So evaluation of safety is actually about the distress. Okay, risk assessment is about the hazard, that is the hazard which can happen in case a failure happens, uska assessment. And risk management is the solution part of it, that how do you manage, how do you take care of this issue. Okay, so when we talk of the management, we are not talking about avoiding the failure. Okay, there is something else here, because this is a risk management. That means it is more focused on minimization of the hazard rather than working only on the structure. So that is why this is very critical. Now, when we talk about the risk, this is something which in the bill also you will see that there are many, since the bill we had taken pains to make it non-technical, because there The whole process is such that you don't really go through a parliament where you come out with a technical documentation, because the owners who are going to pass the bill are basically, they have to understand it. Okay, it cannot be that we just put too much of technical jargon and think that the parliament will pass. It has to be something readable. It has to use very, very, simple word terminologies, and that we have taken care of. But then there is always a risk of the simple terminology being understood in different ways. And that is where the crucial chapter of, the definition comes in the act. If you go through the act, you will see there are simple words like, like inspection, investigation, word like document, even they have been defined. Okay, because there was a need to, define and make it very clear, because we were not using very technical jargons there. So risk is something which I don't want you to generalize it in a simple manner as a risk. No, risk is here actually a measurable quantity. It's a scientific term. It is something which is measurable, and it is basically measured in terms of product of probability of failure and the measure of consequence. Both are measurable. The probability is a measurable thing. If we understand this, it will take maybe many classes to understand what I'm saying in terms of how to measure a probability of failure. But this is the exercise which every dam owner is now required to do as part of the risk assessment study. Okay, so they will have to actually calculate the probability of a potential failure, and they will also have to calculate the measure of, consequences, and then use that to come with a single figure of risk. Okay, this is now embedded in the Dam Safety Act, and this is something which is the most difficult part, which we expect our dam owners to entail as part of the whole dam safety implementation process, because we practically have never done this. Okay, so this is something which is new, and the period of 5 years has been given knowingly that we will be going through a huge learning curve before we get into this. Now, why do we actually emphasize so much about the risk? There is many questions were related to about the fund and all that. We somewhere presume that now we were fine till 2021, everything was good, and in 2021 suddenly something has changed, as though now we will need huge amount of money. Now this is something which has to be understood in a better way by a need for prioritization. If you go through the functions given for the State Committee on Dam Safety, one of the role is given is for prioritizing the mitigation measures. Now that prioritization is something which has to be done through a scientific process. A risk is one of the fundamental in that. So if we can have a figure in terms of risk assessment, then we can prioritize our mitigation measures as per the budget available, as per the money available. We can move gradually. Okay, it's not that overnight we start rehabilitating all the dams. No, that is not intended as far as this Dam Safety Act is concerned. Now, what it means is basically the risk will help us to, as part of the probability of failure study, it will help us to understand the vulnerable element. It's not that the whole dam has to be rehabilitated. It may be a small part of the dam only which may call for rehabilitation, because that may be the vulnerable element. Say, for example, it can be something to do with the stilling basin arrangement, or it may be a gate structure, or it may be some part of the rim which may be unstable. It's not that the whole dam calls for investment. So we can know about which is a vulnerable element. Secondly, we will have a clarity about the chances of failure and the consequences. Now, this is something which is very important, and only a risk study can allow us to make it possible. That takes me to the next one, that is the shifting of focus from structural measure to non-structural measures. I'll just touch these two together. See, you may have an excellent dam which has been just built, say, yesterday. Okay, a lot of money has been spent into it. But it may have a very low probability of failure, but it may have very high consequences in terms of, hazard potential. In case dam fails, the consequences are very large. Obviously, it will stand very top on the risk. The risk factor is very high. It will have to be prioritized. Though the fact is that everything as far as the structural things is concerned, it may be as per the latest, know-how, you may have, put a lot of money into it, and the dam may not even look like something more can be done. But it still has high risk. That means in our prioritization, what we will do is we will shift our focus to non-structural measures. That is, how do you minimize the consequences in case failure happens. Okay, that way we will be able to still reduce the risk. Okay, that's where the element which we talk in terms of, emergency action plan, the dam safety evaluation, etc., comes into picture, because that will help us to mitigate the second part. That is, how do you minimize the consequences? Okay, so that way we will be able to take care. So shifting the focus from structural measure to non-structural measure. Okay, in this non-structural measure, there may not be any element of engineering involved. Okay, and that is why we are basically Dam Safety Act is focused on dam safety management rather than dam safety engineering. We have to be always guarded about this aspect. Setting of prioritization, I have already covered, because you have a large, chunk of, dams in our basket. And obviously we don't have that kind of a money. So prioritization is something which has to be done. And the mandate has been given to the State Committee on Dam Safety for doing that. Apart from that, there is something called judicious decision. We have been hearing it all along, especially from the anti-dam lobby. We talk about this country, decommissioning the dam, or that country doing it, and we should do it in India. Now, that's ridiculous. It has to be part of a judicious decision. What it means is that in case you have very high risk and the cost of mitigation is also very high, that means you are not able to reduce the risk, even with an exorbitant kind of a money. That is the situation where we talk about, decommissioning the dam. Okay, it's not that me using the word is something which is, strictly, earlier we used to use it. You cannot use this kind of a terminology, but now I'm using it, and it is very much, desirable to talk about that, because we have a whole framework of dam safety. We have a concept of risk management, and that risk management concept has to ultimately lead to judicious decision, and a decision, one of the decision may call for decommissioning of the dam. Okay. There are few examples of dam distress, which I'm just quickly going through just to show that how simple things sit as distress. Okay, I'm not going to touch upon each case, otherwise maybe 10-15 minutes will simply go on this. So just quickly going through some slides. I'm not narrating any of these slides, but these simply looking things have got what we call as the distress. They are embedded in the dam. Okay, when a threat will happen, that is the time we will come to know the consequences of the dam failure. Okay, otherwise they can sit like this. We can tend to ignore them forever. In many cases, they have been ignored for years together. Okay, but they sit as distress. These are like simple things, like a parapet of an embankment dam it's a simple thing, but it is a distress which is already embedded. Okay, and its consequences can be immense, because the whole dam may fail because of that simple, opening in a parapet wall. Okay, these are the slides and these are not rare. It's not I'm showing something which is unique. These are the common distress which I have seen in many places. Okay, so I'm not going through any of this particular case studies, but these are the distress. Now this EDK is something which was, identified as a distress. We have not talked much openly about it. It was more in terms of the behavioral distress. Okay, it's not really a structural distress, so I don't want to flag it as something which is very critical. And we came to realize that through going through a whole exercise of understanding the distress phenomena through a finite element method, study. So these are the few simple cases, and there are these case studies which I have listed here. Each one of them, okay, has gone, into bringing some kind of a, important, aspect in the Dam Safety Act. Each one of them. Okay, since I'm not taking you through these case studies, I will not be able to point out how it becomes relevant to which part of the Dam Safety Act. But let me tell you that personally speaking, I will say that any failure is something which is like a lamp, put before you, where you will start seeing something which was not seen till that point of time. That knowledge which was in dark is illuminated by a dam safety failure. So you cannot, simply ignore it. You cannot simply push it under the carpet, or one fine day you declare everything has become, corrected. You cannot do it. You need to go back, understand the dam safety, failure mode, and build learning curve. And that is why we talk about the institutional mechanism. Now, coming on the Dam Safety Act, let me, emphasize this word that the Dam Safety Act is actually not a set of, regulations or law which is meant to be simply applied, per se. Actually, it is a institutional mechanism. The whole act is essentially about an institutional mechanism. Okay, and that mechanism is something which is not like a event. It is a process. The whole procedural part of it. Okay, there are few entities which have been created as part of the act. There are certain processes which have been established in terms of even timeline, but most of the processes are supposed to be evolved. Okay, and that is why we have got very very different kind of a act here. There are not so many embedded. If you look at, like Iyer sir was showing the list of regulations which are yet to be made, those are again broad areas. Each area may have multiple regulations which may come through. They are only giving a kind of a indicative path. Exactly whether we will choose to travel through that path or not, that is only a time can tell us. Okay, so act per se is not the end. It's only a means to the end, and it has to be done through a process of whole institutional development. Now, often we talk about the need for the Dam Safety Act, and having the act, as I said, was not the end in itself, but there were reasons why we needed this act. And obviously the fact that we have huge aging dam infrastructure, and the factor of climate change, which is reality. Maybe when we were pushing for this Dam Safety Act, we were talking about a climate change which is round the corner, but now probably we are already into it. Okay, and the best part which we have to be concerned about is that the climate change is again not something which has happened. It's a whole process which may continue maybe for couple of decades before we start even understanding what it is. So during this process, our readiness, our alertness is something which was desperately called for, and that is why we were like pushing for this Dam Safety Act. And one of the basic the area which we wanted to highlight was the climate change. And of course, everyone understands that there is a increase in our population. The dams which were way remote at some point of time, they are practically now sitting in the middle of the cities. You look at the dam, they all have come very close to the habitat areas. So the possibility of loss of life has gone many-fold up. And of course, we are talking about becoming a developed economy. Shortly, we are again probably able to see that in the near horizon. So the possibility of economic loss also has gone many-fold up. And of course, there is huge potential for environmental impact. Any flood event which you have been seeing, you see the impact on the environment is something which is even unmeasurable. Okay, and a dam failure will have definitely much more consequence than the normal flood event. And of course, stakeholder relationship, because as I told you in the very beginning, the whole concept comes out of the society's demand, the society's social risk aversion, their understanding of the risk aversion. That has compelled us to come through this act. That is the reason why the parliament is passing the act. And in all this process, suppose we forget about the very reason, okay, then we are missing the big picture. Okay, and that is why the stakeholder relationship is very vital. When we sit today, we declare that we are working in an area which is still unknown to us. We declare that we are evolving the whole process, and we also declare that we are concerned about the stakeholders. They are party to the whole process, and that is why many things in terms of, say, emergency action plan, things like early warning system, things like communicating with the stakeholders, the need for having the report to be submitted by all the entities in the assembly or the parliament, they are all related to stakeholder relationship. And of course, we have intense interstate ramifications. Okay, especially in case of the dams which are practically one state's dam sitting in another state, what we have seen in case of Mulla Periyar Dam. Now we have new states like Andhra and Telangana, where the same dam is having one abutment on one state and the another abutment is sitting in another state. That kind of a situation has huge interstate ramification. And of course, we have international ramifications. And these were the factors which basically we were highlighting all along, and they are embedded in many of our notes, cabinet notes, etc., where we basically have been able to justify the need for such an act. Okay. So as I said, I'll be talking more about the why part, and that is why I'm trying to take you through. Now we have got few slides only because I have not gone into elaborate exercise, but my intent is to, try to enlighten you for the with the why part, why we actually talk about dam safety, why certain clauses are embedded. So I have got few ideas summed up here. Now, if you look at this, this diagram, we show 3-tier system. Okay, somewhere probably people have got an impression that the whole Dam Safety Act is about 2-tier system between center and state. Actually, it is not. The whole act has been framed by, delineating the dam owner even away from the state. Okay, the dam owner has been defined. It's a separate entity. It is the most important, entity under this Dam Safety Act, the dam owner. If you go through the clauses, practically most of it are actually directly entrusted to the dam owner. Others are basically to watch and, react to what owner does. So you cannot ignore this entity and only, think that the act is basically a 2-tier system. No, it's a 3-tier system. Okay, dam owner constitute the biggest, tier as far as the Dam Safety Act is concerned. Of course, then we have the institutional mechanism. So dam owner, basically we consider owner. It can be a private entity, it can be a state PSU or a central PSU, or it can be a department or any other possible, ownership is also covered under the act. Now, since this is something which can have all kind of a variability, we have not gone defining institution within the dam owner, except we have used the word dam safety unit, that is one thing which we have kept, and I will talk about it little later. But otherwise, we have created, the organizational entities in terms of what we call as, if I go primarily in this manner, then we can say we have a state dam safety organization, which is an organization. It's a establishment. Okay. And mapping with that, we have National Dam Safety Authority, which in the earlier version of the bill, we were using as Central Dam Safety Organization. It's only a mirror image, state level and the central level. It's basically a mirror image, nothing more than that. Okay. So SDSO and CDSO, now being called NDSA, they were sitting like this. Okay. And they are the permanent establishment. At the same time, we have something called, committees, which basically are the think tank. They are not full-fledged establishments. Okay. They are the committees. I have seen some of the, orders constituted by some of the state where they have even tried to convert these committees, like state committees, as full-fledged establishment. That was not intent of the act. Okay, they are committees. They act as a think tank and provide the input to the SDSO. So as a mirror image, we have a National Committee on Dam Safety, which is the think tank at the national level. They will provide the input to NDSA. Now, which is above and which is below, that question doesn't come. Okay. This is not like we have got like in the interstate dispute, we create the river basin authorities like KRMB and GRMB or Kaveri Management Authority. On top of that, we provide a council, Apex Council and things like that. It is not in that fashion. So please do not mix these committees with kind of a Apex Council, which we have been seeing in terms of River Board. Okay, this is more like a advisor to the NDSA. Okay, so they act as a think tank. They are supposed to meet frequently. They are the one who are supposed to assimilate the knowledge and pass on that to the NDSA to come out with the regulation. Okay, something at a state level that gets done by the SCDS, and they give the input to the SDSO. So that is the kind of an arrangement we have. Okay. Coming on the National Committee on Dam Safety, basically, this is to evolve the unified dam safety policies and protocols. Okay, now the word evolving is embedded there. It's not something which is already declared. It's not something which, has been given to them as something, okay, do like this. No, they are supposed to evolve. That means the scope is much more than what you can, visualize today. and their functions have been, listed under first schedule. If you look at the function, the way the terminologies have been written, you can understand that it's a growing thing. Their role is something which will grow with the time. All the possibilities which can emerge in the future, including, technological interventions, they will be, coming through this National Committee on Dam Safety. Okay, its composition has been now capped by the standing committee. Actually, at some point of time, I don't know how many of you are aware about this, that it was a long process. We actually came out with a act way back in 2010 also. Then again, once more, it went to the parliament. But the 2010 bill, not act, the bill was referred to the Standing Committee on Dam Safety. A wonderful exercise, a thorough exercise was done by the standing committee, and many things actually evolved or they came out from the recommendations of the committee, which practically 99% we have, incorporated in the modified dam safety bill. And it was the committee which basically was, against the idea of having the National Committee on Dam Safety in the same format in which it exists. If you look, we have not come out with a dam safety bill in vacuum. All the systems are already in place. Okay, it's not that suddenly we decide to move in one direction. No, we basically are only trying to, make it more structural, more concrete, more binding, a process which is already there in place. So when we mapped the original composition of NCDS, our, the enlightened member of the Parliament Standing Committee pointed out that the kind of a role which you expect from the NCDS cannot happen in such a big crowd. And that is why this number was capped. And since we have more state, obviously we needed to, do it through rotation. So the idea of, rotating every 3 years has come from there. Okay. So we all should appreciate the intelligence which is embedded behind this idea. I have seen that sometimes we start worrying about why we are not being covered, and we have serious issues like typically, already interstate issues there. So we should be always there. That kind of a demand started coming when we were going through the deliberations. But now more or less we have, passed that milestone. And I understand now there is not much of a debate on those issues. And coming on the National Dam Safety Authority, as Iyer Sahab has already explained its role and responsibilities, but basically it's a regulatory body. And since I was telling you that originally it was conceived as Central Dam Safety Organization, more or less we didn't change any function when we declared this NDSA. Okay, we just practically changed the name and we brought some more terminology to, relate with the authority. Okay, the Parliament Standing Committee wanted a regulatory body. Okay, so in fact, they desired that this regulatory body should be the National Committee on Dam Safety, because in their, understanding, they basically put them in the hierarchy, and NCDS is at the top, and that should be the regulatory body. Okay, which we went into justification, and we were able to convince that that is only a committee. It cannot become a organizational setup which is needed for a authority. So the Central Dam Safety Authority was, renamed as National Dam Safety Authority, with minor changes here and there in terms of the language, but roles were more or less same only. Okay. Now we have this authority, and its functions are enlisted, in the second schedule of the Act. There are large number of, functions which are very well defined. There are 32. Of course, 31, one is very generic role only. But the need for, this was felt mainly because of a tendency where, especially the, so-called central bodies, the apex bodies, they have a tendency, to, generalize, to pass on this thing ki ye to state subject hai, ye to state ka dam owner hai, so it is to be done by them only, to make sure that we don't fall in that trap where we basically sit in the apex level and still think that everything has to be done by somebody else. Not to fall in this trap, we enlisted out the clear-cut functions of NDSA. Okay, so there are 32 functions which define. A huge mandate has been given to the National Dam Safety Authority under this Act. And one of the role, which again is not gelling with the rest of the functions. Okay, I'll explain that again when I come to that. One extra function was, given to it at a very later date, when we had got convinced the Parliament Standing Committee also with the overall framework, everyone was on board. And when we were coming out with this final, act where the act will become applicable to all the state. Okay, at that time when we had shared the act with the draft bill with the, with the state, again as part of another stakeholder consultative process, at that time issues which were always there, the issues which were there basically the largely coming up from Tamil Nadu opposition to the act, because they had this worry, the sense of fear that their dams sitting in Kerala, they will go under the jurisdiction of Kerala State Dam Safety Organization. So they will lose the, control or ownership or, flexibility in operation. All that will be affected. So their concern was addressed, okay, at that last stage, where we gave an extra mandate of, SDSO to the National Dam Safety Authority. That role was swapped, it was taken away from the state and given as an additional duty to National Dam Safety Authority. Okay, there is no other change were made, but this came only again as a need to, develop, concurrence from between all the state government and to make it look more judicious. Okay, and obviously that way we have been able to bring the CPSU in the same discussion where we decided on this. Some of the especially NHPC raised that issue that their dams also should be taken up. So accordingly, they also came under the mandate of National Dam Safety Authority as far as the role of SDSO is concerned. And of course, the dispute resolutions mechanism was already built in, and the decision was made binding. Okay. Now, in these two central bodies, these central entities, that is the National Committee on Dam Safety and National Dam Safety Authority, something which is very vital I want to, underline in this statement, that the focus of these bodies, that is the national bodies, both National Committee on Dam Safety and the National Dam Safety Authority, is essentially on generic issues, okay, which have nationwide implication. It is not dam specific. Please, this is something even those who are currently involved in different, institutional mechanism, if they are listening to me, I want to make it very clear that please do not get confused by, start taking roles or the responsibilities which are not intended. Okay, the role of these bodies is essentially generic, and this is a kind of a commitment which we have been, giving even to the Parliament, that we will not undermine the roles and responsibility of a single state, okay, or their institutional mechanism. We are not undermining their positions. Whatever we will be doing here will be generic. Okay, so we will not start giving direction specific to a particular state or specific to a particular dam, unless that direction is coming out of the function of SDSO, okay, which is basically something which has been carved out as a SDSO function. Okay, otherwise NDSA has only a generic role, which will, whatever they will regulate will be applicable across India. Regulation will not happen for one specific dam or one specific state, something which we have to be very clear. Okay. Now, coming to the state level bodies, okay, we have a state committee on dam safety, something which while we were, working out at that time itself, we wanted to use the SCDS as a platform to take care of the interstate issues. Okay, so if you look at the composition, it has got, representation from both upstream and downstream states also. Okay, that is one platform where many of our interstate issues need to be, taken up and resolved. I believe that it's possible to develop win-win scenario and resolve most of the issues at the level of State Committee on Dam Safety. Barring few cases, we should not escalate every issue to the National Committee, because then we will be diluting the mandate of the National Committee. Okay, the idea that the National Committee or the NDSA will sit and resolve all the interstate matters, that is not intended. Okay, The platform, the correct platform is the State Committee on Dam Safety. Okay. And its functions are also listed as in the third schedule. Only, again, these definition, these functions, if you compare the functions of State Committee and the National Committee, compare these functions vis-a-vis NDSA, there is a change in the nature. Okay. Okay, NDSA, like very terminologies are the roles are very clearly defined, whereas the SCDS and NCDS are more like, it can be expanded. Even the scope can even go much more because they are the one who are evolving with the time. Okay. And they will empower the National Dam Safety Authority or the state dam safety organizations. Now, coming to the State Dam Safety Organization, we have not kept any schedule. Okay, there is no separate schedule, means that their functions are not enlisted. Okay, only the organization has been defined, something a entity which has to be headed by the level of chief engineer in case 30 or more dams are there in a state, or SC, not below, of course, only up to SC. Even with one dam, you need to have one SC who will directly report to the technical head of the department. Okay, so there is some kind of a independence which is given to this organization. Okay, now the functions are not there in the schedule. Okay, the whole idea of schedule, actually making schedule, came from the need of making the document little more short in terms of running pages. Okay, again an idea which many stakeholders during the process of consultations, many ideas were given, and in fact I was more like the gatekeeper for these ideas. Okay, so my role was not like I was generating the ideas, it was more like which idea is best to fit in and taken into the act, and which ideas should be resisted. And this idea of making schedule was wonderful, and we did it, and we could because a lot of repetitions come when you put functions instead of a list, you put functions as a narrative clauses, the kind of bytes which goes into is much more. So we use the schedule for NCDS, NDSA, and even SCDS, but we prohibited the need of schedule for SDSO. In fact, that is where I closed the gate, because SDSO function has to be taken jointly with the dam safety organization. Okay, so dam safety organization, as I said, is the vital entity under the Dam Safety Act, and the SDSO is the watchdog. Okay, so they sit together. Everything which the dam owner does should be watched by the SDSO. We cannot isolate their function, because the moment we take the risk of doing that, or we go ahead with that idea, then there is another risk which is there, which is the dam owner absolving himself from that role. They can very well say, okay, this is the mandate given to the SDSO. They can absolve themselves. Okay, to avoid that possibility, we have brought SDSO function in narrative form and juxtaposed with the role of the dam owners. Okay, now this particular slide will show you these two things together. So SDSO's function have in the narrative form basically have been divided to have been placed there under certain chapter. So mainly it is for the surveillance, inspection, and monitoring. Okay, the watchdog functions, basically they are the the guards basically. Okay, and if you look at the whole preamble of the Dam Safety Act, the surveillance is actually perpetual. Okay, so the surveillance is perpetual, means round the clock. Basically, we are responsible for everything which is happening at the dam, and any consequences we are also involved as part of the perpetual surveillance. And of course, there are periodical inspection, like we talk about pre and post monsoon inspection. All these terminologies are already defined very well. So please read them, understand them. Anything which comes out of as a simple inspection, which calls for deeper, investigation. We have the word investigations, again, well defined. The concept of hazard classification is something which has to be understood, that we are giving the mandate for SDSO to classify all the dams, okay, within their basket. Okay, it's actually, we have used the word vulnerability and hazard classification. Okay, hazard classification was something which was already there in the international domain. The word hazard classification is commonly used. There are standard methods of classifying. In fact, the very large dam definition is nothing but a hazard classification. Okay, because its particular size of the dam, a particular, extent of impoundment will have a certain effect in case of failure, and that is why they become hazard classification, and that is how the large dam definition has been given by the ICOL, which practically we used here. Only thing, large dam would have been a very generic thing, so we needed to switch over a wonderful suggestion given by our law people. Lot of input has come from our people who were sitting from the law end. Okay, so we use the specified dam word because we do not want it to use the ICOL definition of large dam. Okay, now the need for having the logbook database, okay, all those clauses, and I think previous speakers have already covered, so I'm not touching on those things. I'm just trying to explain anything which is relevant in terms of the genesis. Okay, now this is a weak area. The logbook of the data base of the dam is the weakest. Like one of this question was about the old dam and we not having even the drawings and designs. Okay, that talks about the reality today. Okay, now those dams which are already built, we have a certain reality in terms of we not having their the genesis data. But what about the operational data which is going to happen from now onwards, especially in a scenario of climate change? Okay, that is what we will be focusing under this particular clause. So we need to have a logbook of every event, every activity, even like rehabilitation. It should come in our database. Okay, what has been done, who has done it, how it was done, everything. From now onwards, at least we need to maintain this database. And dam failure and dam incidents, it's a very wonderful thing. We actually in the original we had embedded the word dam failure. We gave that definition. As I earlier told you, we made it a very comprehensive definition, linked that with the consequence, and that failure definition is a beautiful definition. And when this bill was with the Parliament Standing Committee, they did a wonderful exercise of broadcasting that bill. It was declared, it was put on the website, and then they invited suggestions. Not only they invited suggestion, they identified the experts, different experts, stakeholders, NGOs. They had huge interaction with them. The idea of incident came out of one such interaction. Okay, I cannot not know exactly which gentleman would have given it, but I am very proud to have recognized that we have this kind of expertise in our domain, where people are so knowledgeable that they were able to point out the difference between a dam failure and something which is a incident. Of course, the word terminology is there very much in the international domain, but to be able to give it at the right point and to be able to bring that influence, that is something which is very vital here. So the dam incident is something which is has not translated into a failure, but very vital for dam safety. Okay, there is a lot of knowledge hidden in this incident, a event which has already happened. So if we only, as I was telling, that it's very important to identify and look into the dam failure, but it's equally important to look into the dam incidents also, because they were events which were at the verge of failure. They didn't translate into failure, but something which could have become failure. So even this was highlighted, and we brought the definition. You should please go through the definition, and you will see that incidents will be very common in most of the dam. This will be happening very frequently, and the whole mandate has been given to the State Dam Safety Organization to focus on the dam incidents. Okay, then instruction for all measures, okay, the safety measures or the remedial measures has to flow from SDSO. Now it's not only that SDSO sits there and gives direction. No, they are responsible for the implementation also. It's a circular loop. So what they instruct to the dam owner, the compliance has to come back to the SDSO. And in case of a non-compliance, they are supposed to raise the flag. That is the role which has been given to the SDSO. Okay, the offense clause basically takes care of this sustenance of this circular motion. And that is why we needed that, offense and penalty chapter. Operational parameters, of course, something which is, relevant in a healthy dam, but also relevant to a distressed dam. And what we are talking here is in terms of the distressed dam, there are certain clause which gives the power to SDSO okay, to even change the threshold levels, like the level of the impoundment or the spillway capacity, how much water can pass through. These are the operational parameters which can be affected by a state dam safety organization. Okay, because the dam is in distress condition. Otherwise, SDSO doesn't have this power. Please understand it. At some point of time in some of the interaction, I was asked that the Dam Safety Act, will it affect the award of the different tribunals? Because in most of the tribunals, the dam design parameters have been given by the tribunals. Okay, now giving a power to a new state dam safety organization, giving them a power to play with this parameter, whether it undermines the award as such, that was a question. So I want to make it very clear here that this is only we say distress scenario. Once the dam has been rectified, the distress has been taken care of, we have no control on the operational parameters. Okay, this is very important, especially from the point of view of the states who see that the role of NDSA is encroaching into their territory. Okay, for them, I want to make it very clear that please do not have the fear that your operational control will not be diluted. It is only for a very limited period of what we call as the distress situation. Once the distress has been taken care of, the SDSO has no mandate to play with the operational parameters. And of course, certifying the fitness of the dam. Now, like I have come recently in my HR function, and one of the most serious, challenge before me is the pension cases. The government at some point of time has decided that before you issue the pension, the whole thing has to be audited by we call pay and account office. Now this simple intervention has blocked the whole exercise of releasing the pension on time. Okay, now this is something which is vital from the government's perspective, because once the money starts flowing, it will be impossible to retrieve that money back. Okay, that is why they put a kind of audit situation where before that scene of giving the pension, please examine everything. Now this is something similar to what we call as the certification before the dam filling, because once the dam is filled up, it has already become to that situation where it is vulnerable to failure. It has the potential for failure and potential to lead to huge consequences. Okay, in our case, this is not something which is undoable, and this is about life and property of the people. Okay, so before we go to that stage, we need to provide a certificate fitness, like the PAO provides a certificate in the service book that they are satisfied with everything, then and then only the pension gets released. In the same manner, we need to have a certificate of fitness for the dam before the initial filling process. Now we know in many of the dams, especially if it's a gravity dam like a masonry or a concrete dam, the filling is not after the completion. We gradually start filling up. Okay, in that case, this will apply to every stage of the filling. Okay, obviously the final stage will be most crucial, because the huge impoundment which is against the gate happens at the last stage, because the whole impoundment has to be done in one go. So that will be the most crucial. So at that point of time, the fitness has to be certified by the state dam safety organization. This is a vital function. Okay, but correlated function has been given to the dam owner also, because as part of the even planning and design, they are supposed to prepare the filling plan. Okay, so the role of SDSO will be more like trying to ensure that it correlates with the filling plan which is already available. They don't have to devise a plan. Okay, they have to only ensure that everything is happening as per that filling plan, and then they have to see the general safety criteria, etc., and then give the clearance. Now coming to the dam owner, and everything which I have listed here is also part of the dam owner's job, because it can be done only with the two entities remaining together. Okay, it's like giving a helping hand to each other. That's how this functions have to be filled up. Now, dam owner will be responsible for providing funds for repair and maintenance, a topic which already has been dealt with elaborately. There is no question of diluting this act by using the word like center will provide the fund through DRIP or we will have a separate fund mechanism. All that cannot dilute the act. Okay, the act is very clear. The fund has to come from the owner. Okay, this is not something, any change can happen only by changing the act. Okay, simply having a fund at the central level will not change the act. The onus still remains with the dam owner. Please understand that. The technical documentation, the very definition of documentation is given there in the first chapter. Okay, the qualification and experience of the staff, obviously this is something for which regulations have to come up. Maybe one regulation or multiple regulations has to come up from the National Committee on Dam Safety, and through NDSA it has to be regulated. And cost of investigation, even if the investigation is done by the SDSO, okay, even then the cost has to be borne by the dam owner only. Okay, and there is this new clause which has come up, which again has changed the whole paradigm. Now this Dam Safety Act is no more related to dam safety of a built up dam. Okay, this act is about everything related to dam, right from its planning and inception and construction and operation, everything. This single clause takes care of that requirement. That is, you will have accredited agencies who will be involved in the investigation, design, operation, construction, everything. The accredited agency is to be, taken care by, again, rules and regulations to come up through NCDS and NDSA. Okay, this is one gray area which I understand has not been touched upon, but strictly speaking, today the act is already in place. If we are having a dam construction going on at some places, or we are planning to, take up a new construction or a rehabilitation or any kind of activity without having, accredited mechanism and getting this work done through non-accredited agencies, again, already a breach of the law. Okay, we have to keep it in mind. So this is something which has to be prioritized. As I already mentioned, that the plan has to be given by the dam owner for initial filling. The concept of dam safety unit, I want to again mention this very clearly here. These were like, many ideas which came from different stakeholders. This was one idea which again was given very strongly. But we needed to, handle it carefully, because already we know the kind of the dam basket we have. We understand what is the, the technical manpower of our departments. Like we have nowadays many, because in the basket, large dam definition basket, we have about 6,500 dams. Okay, so practically even what we call as not so serious dam also are now coming under the large dam category. And we cannot have one engineer, sitting on each dam. In many of the state, I have seen that these dams are looked after by one engineer, maybe looking after 4 or 5 dams. Okay, unless the dam is a big dam, something like 25 meter plus. Okay, but those small dams, there are cluster of dams coming under one subdivision. Okay, so in that case, creating a separate, dam safety unit for each dam was impractical. Okay, but we have built it as a visionary, concept. So we have not, if you go through the act, you will not find much, definition or elaboration on the dam safety unit. It's a part of the evolutionary exercise. We want within a dam safety setup, having dam safety unit, which will have people, basically a team of people who are expert in the dam safety matters. Okay, so they will be, kept away from the day-to-day business, like, awarding the contract, supervising the execution. Okay, things like that, or the operational part. They will be away from that. They will focus more on the dam safety. But as of now, we cannot afford to have one dam safety unit under each, dam. And that is why we kept it rather less loaded, but it has to evolve. And of course, pre and post monsoon inspection, everything has been talked about it. But I want to make it very clear that this is not something which has to be, seen as a exercise in the checklist, which I am noticing is what we exactly are doing. We were doing this exercise maybe for at least 2 decades. We have been, doing pre and post monsoon inspections of our dam. It is being done. Okay, only maybe the reports were not being submitted. Okay, or probably the comprehensive format was not being followed. And now suddenly we see a jump, from couple of dams, maybe couple of 100 dams, we have gone into thousands of dams. 5,000 dam I was hearing yesterday that we have done this year, even for one season. Now that kind of a jump, okay, actually raises a question that how does it happen? I mean, what is it? Is it simply a checklist exercise that we have done, or we have really done that diligence which is called for? You know, if you ask me, we have given certain timeline in the bill only for two kind of activities. One was something which was for the framing of the institution. Okay, that is the timeline where we give in the very beginning, where we have to come out with this institutional mechanism of authority, the national committee, state committee, and SDSO. A timeline has been given, a very a meaningful timeline. Okay, after the act, 6 months after the act. That is the timeline which is embedded in the Dam Safety Act. Then there is another timeline which has been given for mainly for the activities like risk assessment, then like dam safety evaluation, emergency action plan, these three entities. The timeline has been given as a cluster of 5 years. Okay, means each state, they will cover their cluster of dams in 5-year window. A very long drawn timeline has been given. But that timeline has been given for activities which practically we are not doing. Okay. Those are the activities which are practically have to be done. Most of the states, it's like risk assessment, none of the states are doing. We have, what you call as the comprehensive evaluation, which is not exactly what we call as the dam safety review. It's much more than that. That also we are not doing. Okay. Few states as part of the DRIP exercise have prepared the emergency action plan, but most of the states don't have. So they were to be done for the first time. And that is why we imposed a timeline, because without that timeline, we would have gone into that mediocre, position. Okay, we are doing it. So that is why the timeline was embedded. But for other activities, we have not given the timeline. The idea is that we gradually actually strengthen the process, not to simply use it as a checklist. Okay, there is no wisdom in simply making it a checklist. My question will be that if you have done those 5,300 or 400 dams, then who has to ensure that the due diligence has been done? We have the capacity? That is the question we have to ask. Do we have the capacity? And in those reports, what is embedded? Who is going to see? And if those embedded things call for mitigation measure, who is going to, point out those things? Do we have that institutional capacity? We have to focus on the process part. We have to focus on the institutional capacity part. Okay, that is something which I just want to underline here. Instrumentation, all along I have seen in my 35 years, I have seen that this is something which everyone talks about. Everyone, does it also, but they don't, assimilate anything out of that exercise. There is no assimilation. We may have instrument. Okay, we put a lot of redundant instrument, practically almost 50 to 60% redundancy is there already in the dam. So even if 60% instrument fail, even with 40% instrument, we have reasonable instrumentation to draw inferences. But do we draw inferences? That is the $1 million question. Okay, that is something which has to be done. That is what is embedded in the act. If you read, you will understand very clearly that is the focus. Because in some places we even talk about, in case we change the instrument, we have to ensure the continuity of the inferences. The focus is on drawing the inferences, not simply, in terms of using a checklist. Okay. And same thing applies to the hydrometeorological and seismological station. Again, I want to emphasize one point here, that seismicity was not, glorified or, put out of context in the bill. Please understand that. Okay. We have consciously, knowing fully well that it can have implications which can create all kind of distortions, we have used it in a very balanced manner. And we have to be guarded about that when we are now translating, going to the next step. Okay, dam safety is not about the seismic safety alone, please. Okay, and we don't have seismic, failure incidents in India, please understand, or even globally, very few. So it should not be taken out of context, because this is more engineering, more complex. So we overemphasize it and start worrying that every dam is our seismically vulnerable. We should be guarded about it. And that is what I want to underline at this point of time. Okay. Now going to the next one, Chaskar, can you tell me how much time you will give me? Another 10 minutes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
Okay. So we have now separate chapter on the emergency action plan. I think Shri Iyer Saab has already covered on that. But we basically want to, I want to make it very clear that emergency action plan and disaster management are two different things. Okay. Emergency action plan is one plan or a document which is covering everything up to failure. Okay. A disaster management is post failure. Okay. Many a time people confuse and talk as though they are one and the same thing. They are not one and the same thing. Okay. They are two different things. So emergency action plan basically calls for a kind of a scenario which, you know, can generate. Okay. And if it generates, then we need to know the consequences also, because how will we start giving the warning to the people on the downstream, which people are likely to be affected with what kind of a scenario? All that has to be known before we prepare an EAP. Okay, so the consequences have to be mapped even before you prepare an EAP. And the relationship between, you know, failure and the consequences has to be understood by what we call as the dam break modeling. Now, many a time people have asked me that the so-called excellent, you know, bill is silent on the dam break modeling. You know, these words come up, and I have told you before that we wanted to minimize the uses of, you know, too complex, you know, technical jargons. Okay. And in any case, repeatedly I have said that emergency action plan is basically has no meaning unless we have the dam break modeling. Okay, so dam break modeling is only one of the essential, you know, requirement of preparing the EAP. So that is gone. It is understood. It is very much there in the dam safety bill. We cannot think that we have to prepare EAP. We don't have to do the dam break modeling. We have to do it. We have to do the dam break modeling. We have to develop the inundation map. Based on that, we have to prepare the emergency action plan. EAP will focus on both the structure, that is about the probability, as well as the consequences. Both have to come within the EAP. Okay. So apart from this requirement, there are clarity about the obligation of dam owner in terms of establishing hydrometeorological network, inflow forecasting system. Okay, each dam has to have the inflow forecasting system, which can be a common system, but it should affect every dam in the whole network. Okay. Then the owner has to establish emergency warning system. Now this warning is for both upstream and downstream. Okay, and this has to be repeatedly, you know, checked also. Means those kind of what we call as drills, dry drills have to be done so that it becomes a reality rather than something which will happen only at the time of emergency situation. No, it has to be an active live warning system. And of course, we have to disseminate flood information. That is the stakeholder inclusive approach. We need to disseminate flood information. The earlier idea of, you know, to keep the information with you, not to, you know, raise the alarm bell, not to, you know, draw attention, all that has to be done away after this dam safety bill. Okay, all those ideas happened because of what we used to have, that perception that the dam building has to be protected, you know, from the you know, activists who oppose the dam, and we keep all the information in a nutshell to a very closed area. All that has to be done away with. Many a time this question has been asked by me whether a emergency action plan has to be disseminated. Yes, it has to be. You know, there is no meaning in you having a emergency action plan, you're talking about the huge consequences and not sharing it. You know, sharing is important because you cannot take for granted that stakeholders are not knowledgeable. Okay, they are equally knowledgeable, and you have to disseminate every information. So the live flood dissemination information has to be kept live. Okay. Assistance to National Dam Safety Authority on an early warning system. Now, this is at a national wide level, the responsibility, one of the function in the 32 function is to create an early warning system. Now, this is a role given to NDSA. You know, people make us confused that no, this is being done by CWC, etc. That is secondary, but as far as the Act is concerned, there is a early warning system which has to be established, and that will operate under NDSA. Okay, and for that, every assistance has to be provided by the dam owner. Okay, this will take care of all the issues of cascading regulation also. That is getting built up in this. Okay, then the responsibility for carrying out risk assessment every 5 years, I have already explained to this. Risk assessment exercise I have already explained to you. And I want to again underline that this will be a evolving exercise. Today, you may come out with a risk assessment study which may not be up to the mark. Doesn't matter. Okay, it's a evolving exercise. We have to take the step, because otherwise you will corner it for the 5th year, and then everybody will do it as a checklist exercise. Okay, they will one fine day declare, okay, we have done the risk assessment studies of so many dam. That is what is going to happen unless we move in now. Okay, and that's where NDS has to step in. Probably there is a lot of gray area which has to be covered by the NDSA after deliberation in the National Safety Committee. Okay, now risk assessment has to be updated at regular interval. In none of the cases we have defined what is regular interval. In many places we are using this word, but that is something which has to come by way of regulation. Okay, now this regulation, the intelligence here is that it need not be one regulation for all the dams. It can be based on the type of the dam. It can be based on the age of the dam. It can be based even on the baskets which are there with the entities. That flexibility is there. It is something which we have to understand and come out with meaningful, practical, regulations. So that flexibility is embedded. In terms of emergency action plan, the dam owner has to prepare emergency action plan before the initial filling. But for existing dam, the timeline is 5 years. Okay. What exactly is to be embedded in the EAP has been clearly listed out. And when a EAP has to be put into effect, that also has been clearly laid out in the Dam Safety Act. Okay, everything is very clearly given there. Conditions for, okay, then it has to be through a consultation process, especially with the Disaster Management Authority. It has to be done in a transparent manner, and what has come out of it has to be also disclosed transparently. Okay, there is no ambiguity about this. I think Disaster Management Authority, the assistant, in case of a failure, every assistance which is needed by authority, they can proactively ask, and under this act, the dam owner is bound to provide all that kind of a help. Now, coming on this comprehensive dam safety evaluation, it is to be seen only as a dam safety audit, nothing more than that in the first instance. Okay. So this audit is something like any financial audit where they come and look into what has gone wrong in the earlier, and in terms of the process of the entity and the possibilities of something going wrong in future. Everything is in the scope of the audit. Okay. And same way in the dam safety audit or in the dam safety evaluation, that independent panel. Now the emphasis on the independent panel. What is exactly independent here? It has not been defined. But let me tell you, anyone who is already involved in the construction, okay, or the design or the operation of the dam will not be independent. The person has to come outside this basket. He cannot sit with a preconceived notion that everything is correct. The very idea which I told you in the very first sentence, that the dams are complex structure, the degree of unknownness. We don't want any person to take things as granted. Oh, I know it. A independent person can begin with the premises that he doesn't know. And that is why the exercise of the CDSC will be something which will involve a lot of interaction, lot of inquiry, going through every document which is available. And it's an exercise which is very comprehensive. That is why the word comprehensive dam safety evaluation, not what we do generally in terms of dam safety, review, which we are doing as part of something like a rehabilitation exercise. We have got fund coming up. We want to do a rehabilitation in a certain window. What activities are entailed under DSRP are not covered fully. They are not enough to cover what is meant by CDSC. What is CDSC? If you go through, it's elaborated there. All those 4 or 5 bullets are there. Please read that. It talks about everything. It's not only about the structural, the deficiencies of the distress. It talks about the operational part. It talks about the hydrology. It mandates a need for design flood review, which we may not be doing as part of regular dam safety review panel exercise, but under DRIP, of course, we are doing under DRIP, not otherwise. Okay. So any possibility which can even happen as a threat in future, even that has to be seen by CDSCO. Okay, a possibility of a landslide, or some structure which are sitting in
in kind of a, like I have seen many a time, hanging rocks right on the dam axis, okay, which may be ignored most of the cases, but a CDSC should be able to point out a possibility of threat coming from even that rock hanging there. Okay, these are the things which have to be seen by the dam safety evaluation. And of course, the report of CDSC has to be given to SDSO. Okay, in case the dam owner is not doing CDSC on its own, then SDSO has to enforce, okay, and make the dam owner pay for the cost. Okay, that is what has to be done. Of course, the interval between two dam safety evaluation, that is to be decided by part of the regulation to be given by through a national committee, through NDSA, it will come. But again, I want to make it very clear here that it will be dam specific. It need not be one size fits all. It need not be. We can have a range of, for a certain dam, a 10-year period will be more than enough for most of the dam. Okay. But in certain cases, like it's like 100+ year dam, we can have a lower frequency. The dam is already 100 years. We can have a lower frequency. Likewise, we can have certain criterias. Or since we are doing already, hazard classification, we can link this, the frequency of CDSC with the hazard classification. High hazard category can have more closer frequency. So that kind of a, different sizes can be evolved. And of course, since this is done by an independent panel, there is every possibility the dam owner may not agree with the views of the independent panel. So there may be a kind of a, clash of a view of points. I'm not saying clash of interest. I believe that both want the dam to be safe, but the point of views may differ. In that case, the SDSO will become the arbitration, platform. But in case that is not resolved by the SDSO, then the matter can be escalated up to the NDSA level. All these mechanisms are very well laid out in the bill. Okay, coming on the offenses and penalties, let me tell you very clearly that in my own understanding, my whole experience, I was dead against the idea of having a chapter on offenses and penalty. In fact, the first bill which was placed in the parliament, which was referred to the parliamentary standing committee, there was no provision for offense and penalties. And it was deliberated. And my argument was that if we have penalty provision, then people will, never come out with their problems. We will never investigate a dam failure where we need to have so much of insight coming from that. Okay, so we cannot have these two things happening where I have a sword hanging on my head and still I volunteer the information. It may not happen. And that was the reason we wanted to do away with this. But in their own wisdom, and I agree that that was the right thing to do, the standing committee recommended, and we agreed for this recommendation, okay, that the offenses penalty has to be there, because without, as they say, that no act with that, teeth will become an act. It will have no meaning, So regulations through an act without making it binding through a provision of offenses and penalty will not be a regulation at all. And that argument is very correct. But what we have done is, in our own wisdom, we have actually taken care of the third part of it. Okay, if you read those clauses, we have seen both aspects, that we have not absolved anybody. We have not passed the threat to low level officials, because in many places when I take this chapter, people ask me whether who will exactly, will it be the engineer in charge, or it will be the SC or the chief engineer, who will, be made responsible. Okay. Please read the clauses right up to the top person. The head of the department will become guilty if an offense is justified. Okay. Unless and otherwise he proves that he was, not in the picture of the whole thing. Okay. Otherwise he is deemed guilty. So it starts right from the top. Okay. And the best part is not about, making people guilty based on the consequences. The definition of guilt or the offense is very clearly defined. It will happen only in two cases. One case where you obstruct an officer who is being given the responsibility, which are these, institutions. Okay, all the institutions, right from the owner to the, state dam safety organization, to the State Dam Safety Committee, the National Committee, and NDSA. These are the entities who can be obstructed by any person. Then an offense gets created. And second is that if there are clear-cut directions, there are directions and those directions are not complied with. Okay, so a possibility where we basically were totally ignorant about a situation and a disaster happens. Okay, the reasons can be attributed even to factors which are embedded in the dam. Okay, like a dam may not have been designed properly for passing a flood, and the flood comes and the dam fails. Doesn't mean the offense gets embedded. Okay, doesn't mean that someone has to be crucified. But if there is a comprehensive dam safety evaluation done and a direction has been given that this spillway has to be rectified, a timeline has been given, and if that compliance has not happened, and if the dam fails, then and then only the offense gets registered. Okay. And another important fact here is that the cognizance of the offense can only done by these entities which are created under the Act. That is NCDS, NDSA, SCDS, and SDSO. No other entity, okay, not even a government level institution or somebody on their own can, define the offense. Okay, only these entities. So that is how we have been able to, bring some control on this factor, because the idea is again that we don't want to hide anything. In fact, something mishap happens, we want to learn through that. That means we want to open up everything. Okay. So please don't feel threatened by this chapter on the offenses and penalties. That's all I have to cover. One point which I have not mentioned here in this is about the liability, not in terms of offense, but liability in terms of, consequences to the people who are affected. Okay. How do we compensate that? A provision for that is also there. I have not brought out it in my normal presentation because that provision has to be evolved. Okay. If you go through the function of the National Committee on Dam Safety, in one of its function, it has been given that compensation has to be given through a mechanism of insurance. Okay. But that has to go through a evolving process. This is one very important mandate which we should never, push it under the carpet. It has to be started right away. Okay, because it is going to make us more responsible in terms of financial, trade-off. If our dams fails either structurally or operationally, and if few people suffer either in terms of loss of life or loss to property, they have to be compensated. Please do not sit under this impression that that is not covered. That is very much covered. Okay. Only thing that mechanism has to be gradually brought forth by the National Committee and regulated by the Dam Safety Authority. And the mechanism has been defined. It will be by virtue of insurance. That automatically makes you more responsible because the insurance premium will be automatically linked with the nature of the structure, that is how safe they are, by the nature of your operational mechanism, by the caliber of your, the institutional mechanism. All things will be weighed by the insurance regulator. And that is how the premium will be fixed up. So this is something which is going to again help us only. So please don't try to push it under the carpet and think it is not spelt out openly. So it need not be done. It has to be done. Okay, with that, I thank you everyone for your patience. If time permits, if there are questions, I can take the questions.
Thank you, sir, for a very informing and captivating session with the panache and finesse only you can do. It has been a breeze of fresh air like session, and thank God we are recording it so it can be heard by many more people, and we can again hear it repeat more whenever we feel like. It was an extraordinary session, sir. Thanks a lot. And we have some little queries. I would request you to kindly take. First, there is a query from Engineer Palita. Why the Act does not call for central monitoring system by remote sensing or wireless telemetry? This might reduce the human resource and cost.
Okay, let me again tell you, if something is not there embedded in the act, doesn't mean it cannot be done. Okay, because I told you there is a provision to evolve ourselves. All the rules, regulation, and practices, is in the evolving domain. So tomorrow, new technology comes. Suppose through space satellite also we are able to. Even that should be embedded today. If you tell me that the remote or wireless or drone has not been embedded, what about a new technology? Maybe some robotic technology, maybe some artificial intelligence. How do I embed everything in an act? No, we have not created an act as a series of instruction. We have created an act as a institutional mechanism which has to evolve and grow. Okay, so the provision is already there. Your state committee on dam safety can give you direction about what technology to use, or it can come through NCDS and made mandatory through NDSA. Okay, all the ideas can be done. So it is not that it is not there. It is very much there. We are yet to see it. Okay, act is only an act passed by the parliament. It is not yet in implementation. It will be in implementation in perpetuity. It's a process. It will be always in do loop. So it is there. That's how I would like to say. It is very much there.
Thank you, sir. There is another query. Is there any limitation for infrastructure development in and around dam site so as to avoid hazardous pollution?
Okay, now here I would tell you like this. We talk about the dam comprehensively. In the very definition, you will see the whole reservoir rim is covered. Okay, that takes a huge area. Okay, our reservoirs run into what? Maybe easily into something like even cases 100 kilometers. Okay, anything which is periphery of that reservoir is part of the dam safety. Okay, we can bring regulation. We can have regulation even defining what structure can happen in the vicinity of these, whether a factory can come, whether somebody can start doing, sand mining or some other kind of a mining. All that can be easily covered by the existing provision. You don't need to embed it there. We have embedded one clause about the river, mining, direct river mining. We have embedded that 500 meters from the dam, from the toe of the dam or the last structure of the dam, up to 500 meters, we have defined it as part of, because in the reservoir rim, everything is covered. Okay, but downstream, it was not covered. So downstream, we covered by bringing 500 meter of the river stretch, not the peripheral area, obviously, but then ambiguity may come in terms of how to define a river. That part we will leave it to regulation for a later date. But in the bill, we have brought a huge extent of the upstream area and a logical extent of downstream area also. Okay, any activity which is going to happen here directly, it is within the mandate of the SDSO. SDSO has power. Okay, in case they fail, they can seek the assistance of SDSC. Okay, since this is a specific dam case, they cannot come to the National Committee or to NCDS. But if such cases are raised there and National Committee in its wisdom thinks, this should be regulated as a generic regulation applicable to whole of India, then yes, then a regulation can be created. Is it clear? Am I clear on this?
Yes, sir. There is a query from JSW Hydro that they had done the. Am I addressed, sir?
Yeah, please.
So there is a query from JSW Hydro that they had done the DSRP inspection 2 years ago. Should they again do this? What should be the frequency?
Yes, see, basically, again, I am saying we should not worry too much about, checklist kind of exercise. We should go by the merit of it. Now, if a particular dam owner has got substantial dam, okay, something like Maharashtra, okay, and we know in 5 years they are supposed to do the whole exercise, okay. Now, in case they fail to do the whole exercise, do you think heaven will fall? What will happen? It will be basically a slippage, If we have got, say, suppose Maharashtra has got, say, 1900 odd dam, they are able to do, suppose, 1700 dam, 200 dams, they missed it. It will be a slippage, nothing more than that. But in 5 years, if they do 200 dam, then yes, this will be considered as a breach of the law. Okay, a slippage can be justified, it can be answered. So there is a provision for slippage. Now, coming back to your question, if you have a huge pool of dams sitting there, then these few dams which you have just done 2 years earlier, will you start your exercise again with that? Because in any case, you have a huge basket. So my suggestion will be, please don't go by that kind of interpretation that every dam has to be done on the date. Yes, every dam has to be done after the notification, and before 5 years, every dam has to be done. But please prioritize. If you have a small basket of dam, then yes, do rest of your dam, and then these two also can be taken because you have the capacity, you have the timeline. But if your basket is huge, then don't worry about these two dam. You start with everything else. Try to maximize. And in case time permits, you have the capacity at that point of time, add these two more. Okay. Go by the spirit. Don't go by simply the checklist. Okay. Does it answer your question, please?
Yes, sir, I think the query has been addressed. Another query, but I'm not very clear with the language, but still I'm reading it out, and if he's there, Mr. Ram Singh Rajput, he can also speak on this. Can a dam owner, as state holding PSU for dams, can deny or unaccent the DSRP committee constituted by SDSO SEDS, or that PSU for state-owned dam can constitute a separate DSRP committee for inspection of their dam?
Okay. I think that some confusion was there in the previous session when somebody was asking that. I think JK PDC was asking a question. Now, let me tell you, please read the act. Okay. The mandate, the onus of doing the comprehensive dam safety evaluation is resting with the dam owner, not with the SDSO. It is the dam owner. It is his obligation. The dam owner has to create a panel. Okay. It can be one panel per dam, or it can be one panel for multiple dam. That is immaterial. Okay. Because obviously there are not so many experts that we can have one panel for each dam. So it means we will have limited panels. So like say JKPDC as a dam owner, dam owning entity, they can create a panel. If they have say 10 or odd dams, that single panel can take care of the evaluation part of all those dams. So PSU is creating the panel here. Okay, not the state dam safety organization. But the state has their own dams also. State may have, departments, they may have their own dam. So as dam owner, they will have to create their own panels. Okay, it can be one panel, it can be multiple panel. And they will be inspecting the state dams. If there is a synergy between the PSU and the government that the same panel can do, we have no problem. Okay, we don't have a problem because after all, the PSU is also owned by the same state government. In their wisdom, if they say, okay, use the same panel, yes, use it. We don't have a problem. There is no confusion about that. So please read the act and go by the act. There are no prohibitive clauses. They are all do. Everything is in terms of do this, do this. There is hardly anything that do not do this. Okay, so if a collaboration is possible between PSU and the State Department, please leverage on that collaboration. You can definitely use there, but you cannot simply say, okay, I am waiting for them to constitute a panel so that I can do my evaluation. No, the onus is with you. You have to prepare, constitute the independent panel, and you have to, assign the job, and you have to pay for that. That is the onus is with the dam owner. Okay, am I clear on that, please?
So there is another very interesting query. Perhaps you are the one of the few people who will be able to answer this. It is from Mr. Shri. I would like to know that which one would be better option for young engineers, MTech in dam safety or MBA with specialization in dam safety.
Okay.
MTech or MBA?
MTech in dam safety is already there now, thanks to this dam safety bill, and maybe partly because of the initiative we took under DRIP, where we collaborated with the academic world. We collaborated. Actually, we did a lot of things. Not only we made them, party to funding for building their capacity. We also partnered with them for our national dam safety conferences. So we had a wonderful association, and that association was embedded in the act, where we brought them as part of the NCDS, as part of the SCDS, etc. As part of that whole collaboration, now we have got MTech programs coming up for dam safety. I think it is there with IIT Roorkee, and at least ISC Bangalore also has it. So we have program, but there is no MBA program for dam safety. Okay, MBA programs are still in the same windows, where they can be classified in terms of generic, common subject areas like finance or human resource management or operational research, that kind of subject. So I want to advise you to, pursue MBA to become a dam safety specialist or develop the knowledge. But definitely I will suggest that you do MBA over and above whatever you are doing, because MBA can, break some of your mindset. Okay. We engineers have a big problem. We work in what we call as the analytic mode. Okay. Analysis is the default, even in our resume and everything, we declare ourselves as that we are strong in, analytic abilities. What exactly analytic means? Analytic is basically trying to look at a problem and narrow down to small component and focus on that small component and understand, learning from that small component, and then presume that this learning applies to the whole. We start from part and go to the whole. That is what we engineers are. That's how we have been trained. That's how we have been working and doing well also. But somewhere we miss something in this exercise of moving from small to, large. Management starts from the other end. It starts from the large. The difference between engineering and management, in my understanding, is that we focus on analytic approach. They focus on synthesis. They look at the whole thing. They try to synthesize the whole thing. They don't try to analyze. And so there is a change in our approach. Like in our engineering, often we miss people. All in our construction activity, we miss the labor. We don't see them as though they don't exist. We miss the contractor. We don't understand that he's existing. How many of you go to dam safety inspection and ask question to someone who is standing there, who may not look like great, but he may have the wisdom to give you that insight which probably no one else has. But for us, they don't exist because we are focused in that small, details of structure, analytical approach. We try to look at them and try to, assume everything. There is a lot of assumption. But a manager will ask a question to the person instead of making an assumption. Do you see the difference? That is very vital for dam safety management. So please pursue your specialization, do your this thing, but be open to management's, subject. Doing MBA is not important. It's only a degree, but having a, managerial insight. Okay. In my all, early, when I started very early on this dam safety talks, I used to show one photograph, which was basically have taken from National Geography. Their magazines used to come, There was a beautiful photograph where you can see lot of, camels in a desert. Okay. And I used to show this photograph on my slides. We used to have those transparency at that time. Even I had a transparency for that. And if I ask what you see, people will say, yeah, we see camel. Okay. But in reality, they used to see the shadow of camel. The camel were tiny invisible dots and shadows were large. Okay. You come to the same conclusion, which is correct, but still you miss the bigger picture. You look at shadow and assume the camel. And that's what we do in most of the time. Most of the time, that's what we do in dam safety. We try to do that. Like in today biology science, in our all medical practices, why do we do so many tests? Sometimes you point out, oh, this doctor has got vested interest, that is why they make us go through. But really speaking, there is knowledge embedded in those tests. Okay. But we as dam safety professionals, especially those who are, those who have declared themselves as expert, have seen them making this mistake repeatedly. And this mistake gets compounded. It doesn't stop there. It gets compounded. It becomes very generic. People below also carry that impression. And we miss the bigger picture. Okay. So please bring management thought process. That's very important. Okay. I hope I answered your question.
Now I would request Mr. Devaji Das, who is available from NIPCO. He has raised a very long query. Not here when I read it out. Is he there? Devaji Das?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Yeah, myself Devajit Das, Deputy General Manager Civil from NEPCO. Sir, actually we have our catchment area is remotely located and GSM GPRS connectivity is not there. So for installation of any early warning system instruments, communication is the backbone, and because of non-availability of GSM GPRS, either we have to rely on the VSAT installation or satellite communication. And due to difficult terrain and poor accessibility, installation and daylight is because electricity connectivity is also not there. So functionality or installation of VSAT is difficult. So now we are using the satellite communication for getting the AWS data through ISRO MOSDEC that site, and where your data frequency is 1 hour. So is it not possible to form a central agency with the art station where this data frequency can be reduced and user agency can get the process data?
That's you started with the early warning system. Basically, there is a need to the dam owner to establish a early warning system. But we have not gone into the So we talk about the early warning system. We make it mandatory. We make the dam owner responsible for putting this, establishing this. But we have not gone into the manner of it. Okay. I hope you people have patience, because I tend to get carried away and give too many examples. But here I want to share one example. Recently there was I don't want to name the dam, but a dam in Rajasthan which failed. Okay. Maybe 2015 or something. So when I was there at that dam site, trying to understand what has happened, everything which I understood was that it would have been a gradual exercise. Earthen dam, basically, it cannot fail suddenly. But the department, all the people wanted me to get convinced that it will be a sudden failure. Okay. It was like the watchman was walking. Suddenly he heard a huge, blast kind of a sound, and he came and he saw that the whole dam is washed out. So I asked a logical question that about 25-meter high dam, fully flooded, like it was a monsoon time when the water level has gone up suddenly and the dam had failed. So I, looking at the whole terrain and the area, I said, okay, fine. How come there is no casualty? How come? Early in the, we are talking about some 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. How come there is no loss to life? Okay. Now they gave me a story, interesting story. They said that when this dam was being built, there was a small temple. Okay. And that temple was going in submergence. So the authority has relocated the temple. But the priest, a stakeholder, was not convinced or happy with that. So he was like started declaring that this dam is going to fail. Okay. And on that unfortunate day, just before that, though nothing is wrong with the dam, I mean, I'm telling you the narrative part of it. He went and told the whole village the dam is going to fail. All the people he went and told, and they evacuated. And the dam failed, and there was no consequence in terms of, much loss to the life. The message which I want to give here is there are many ways of, communicating the early warning. In this case, I don't know whether he saw ample symptoms in the dam, and then he exercised his, his intent to communicate to all the people, and the talk would have disseminated and people would have moved out. But it is one mechanism of forecasting or taking care of early warning. Okay, we people are given a set of problem, but please understand, when the problem is given, the boundary of the problem is defined. A solution has to be found with that boundary, within the boundary. We use the word out of box, out of box. Out of box doesn't mean that you pick something out of nowhere and put it here. Okay, your desire for having a central intervention for this kind of a scenario is well, but I will call it too far, fledged idea at this moment. Okay, because we have our own experience that actually in crisis, probably the satellite system also fails. Okay, we need more, strong, reliable thing. Communication is, if I would have taken you through one of my, case studies of a failure, I would be able to tell you how important the communication is there at that crisis moment. And the communication fails. Invariably, that is the first thing which fails. Okay, so based on your own system, you have to find out the best course of early warning. It can be a mechanism of a simple SMSs, but then the one who is issuing the SMS has to come to know of that. He has to have all the communication with him. Media can be an excellent mechanism for handling it. Deputing people to take care of, and it is progressive. It is not like you have to vacate the whole city. When the blue warning, like as per the EAP, suppose we flag the blue, okay, we will focus only on the very near vicinity to begin with. Others will be, kept on guard. As we progressively move, that's how we will be doing it. So please look into the intent and the whole practicality of it. Okay, impractical things should not stop us. We should find what is practical. And if we are in the ownership mode, if we know what we are doing, then I am very sure we will have methods. And probably you will have a method which will be copied by other people, because you may be the first to, reach that intelligence to have devised that method. So it's a whole institutional mechanism. The idea of connecting all the dots is embedded in this act. We will use your, ability to initiate, your intelligence about it, your innovativeness. Everything is part and parcel of this whole exercise. That is why we have members coming from state government in the National Committee on Dam Safety. And that is why we are rotating them, because their insight will lead to formulation of a, you know, a kind of a generic thumb rule or unified code of practices. Okay, nothing is prohibiting you. Please find the best solution as of now.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll do it.
Thank you.
Sir, and now we take the last question. Madam Manjusha Misra from NSP.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, please, I can hear you.
Yeah, I agree with what your observation about analytical approach. We engineers are actually only dealing with only analytical approach and missing the overall pictures quite this time. My question was that in your earlier slide, you talked about probability of failures, where you have said this is the most difficult thing you have the dam owners have to undertake. And I do agree with you, because what do you define as the probability of failure? Is it only the engineering probability or the operational probability, or as a probability of all other side aspects which is there in operations of dam?
Okay.
And how do you generate the data to do the probability failure analysis?
Okay. Okay. I mean, a very good question here. See, I did mention somewhere about the advantage of a risk analysis, letting us know the vulnerable elements. Okay. That means the failure is not one point. Failure has got many possibilities. They each constitute a vulnerable element. Okay. So every part will be counted. So whether we have a saddle dam, we will find out what's the probability of failure of the saddle dam. Okay. We will find out what is the probability of, you know, a gate failure. We will find out the probability of overtopping of the dam. Everything can be calculated. The simplest exercise I can tell you is in terms of, say, overtopping of the dam. We know the dam has been designed, suppose, for, say, 1 in 100 year return flood. What does it mean? It means the probability of failure is 1 by 100. Correct? That's how it is. That if we take a span of 100 years, 1 year, the dam will overtop, because we will not have adequate, you know, flood capacity. Obviously, it can be further, you know, handled also. We can have series of stuff involved in this. Okay, because we can always say ki a case where we have adequate flood capacity to pass 1 in 100 can also fail. There we will bring in the other element. Okay, like all the gates are all gates are operating, then the dam will not fail. But then we say that dam will fail if one or multiple gates are operable. So now we will come into that branch of the tree where we will calculate the probability of gate not being operable. Are you understanding? So there also you can ask, how do we find it? No, it is possible to find it, because if we are creating data, if we have enough data, then those data can tell us, okay, that what is the probability of dam being not operable or something not being. Even a simple maintenance schedule can give you insight. It cannot be like a absolute science, but it's something which can give us data or inferences with some confidence level. So we will go ahead with that exercise and work out the probabilities. Okay. And then if it's a chain reaction, like in this tree case, we will have to multiply the probabilities. Okay. If they are isolated event, then we add those probabilities. And that is how we basically, it's a simple probability analysis. And that's how we define the probability of the failure as such. Okay. Then there are multiple, ways of working it out. So that is why I'm saying it's not an easy exercise. This is more into theoretical domain. It is yet to become in a practical domain, but international experts, international domains are there who have been doing it, like USBR has done wonderful job in this. FEMA has done wonderful job in this areas. They have developed this as a science, good science. So we are going to move into it, and knowing very well that this is the need of the time, we have embedded it. as a mandatory requirement, but we gave a grace window of 5 years. That window is essentially for us to evolve. Okay. So what you say is very correct, that this is a difficult exercise, but it's a doable and it has to be done. I'm not very sure whether we have come out with any guidelines, but I know that there are few risk assessment studies done. So that can be the beginning. At least that can be shared and people can look into it. And again, I am reiterating that please never be worried about a poor quality of your first document. Okay, do it, let it be known, let it be disseminated, let people point out what mistakes you have done. That's where our academicians will come in. They will point out, and that's how we will improve upon it. Okay, and risk assessment as such has no absolute meaning in its measure. Its meaning is only in relative, because its major input will come in prioritizing the intervention. Correct? So its absolute value has no meaning. If I give a number, it has no meaning. But when I pick two numbers, it becomes meaningful, because I know, okay, which one is to be prioritized. And secondly, the whole exercise can help us with more insight in terms of which is the more vulnerable element. The measure is not important, but relative value. So we can know which is more vulnerable, where to focus more. And it can also give us an insight whether we need to focus more on structural intervention, or we need to put all efforts into non-structural intervention. Okay, so these are the benefit, and everyone has to get into this exercise. And at least I expect few entities, especially some of the PSUs, if they can develop capacity, they can become consultant. They can earn a lot of money out of this. You may have 1 or 2 dams, but you develop the expertise, you become consultant, you open your own consultancy cell and start giving consultancy to all the dam owners. That's what we expect to actually happen in course of time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Before
Hello.
with Shri just ask us academy to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. We have
Is there any question I am not able to hear? Is it something?
highest level experts of India, not only in India, but they have a international reputation as well. In fact, for this webinar, we have international participants. We have participants from Sri Lanka and Bhutan, which indicates that people look to our ecosystem of dam safety as a model, and they want to learn from our dam safety initiatives. I must thank the participants who have raised many queries. Because in a forum like this, it is also important that it becomes a forum for interaction. And we also know the difficulties and issues faced by the implementing agency. And all the sessions were quite interactive. There were many questions, and that made the webinar series more interesting. NWA has started conducting these awareness webinars as well as training programs to address the need of capacity building and training in dam safety aspects in general, and Dam Safety Act in particular. We will be continuing this initiative. We are going to repeat such webinars again with the addition of more specific topics for which the dam safety owners or dam owners are facing issues. We are also planning to conduct a TOT program, training of trainers programs, basically because there is a huge need of trained manpower to fulfill the various aspects of Dam Safety Act. And it's not possible to do it in a very short period of time unless we have some structured training in India. And we are proposing, we'll be shortly coming up with a TOT programs on dam safety. And today we have many dam safety authorities in this webinar. So I would request them to nominate their officers whenever NWA conducts such programs. Incidentally, we are talking today about dam safety. And yesterday only we had a very, though it was a very big incident as such, but there was an incident of a dam failure in Madhya Pradesh, wherein a Pawadhi reservoir got breached. though there was no much damage to the and life as such. But it is an example that we are going in a right direction, and the strengthening of the dam safety ecosystem is very much needed. So I request again all the participants to give us a feedback about this webinar series that we conducted. The link to give the feedback is given in the chat box. Please click on the link, go to the Google form. It will take only 1 minute, not even 1 minute. That's very simple, but that will help us in organizing the future webinars in a much better way. You can suggest a topic that needs to be further included if you have left any topic in this webinar as such. So kindly give your feedback. And now I hand it over to Shri Pande ji to propose final vote of thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for nice words. And I can't thank enough Dr. Pillai, sir, who had extraordinary session, and we feel fortunate that it has been recorded. Many a times recordings have issue, but this session will be useful not for this webinar only, but in future also. We will have the benefit of going through this recordings and having insight into the nitty-gritty of this Dam Safety Act, and from a person who has spent decade almost on this aspects, and though he was his humility was evident when he said he was gatekeeper, he was in the thick of things. Sir, we are grateful to you for sparing your valuable time and being with us and delivering this session. Thank you, sir. And now a formal vote of thanks for this whole webinar. We had a very enriching and enlightening session over a period of 2 days. We are coming to an end of the extremely rewarding webinar as we received an unforeseen and unprecedented response of more than 900 people registering for this webinar. And yesterday we had more than 500 people who attended. Today also almost 400 people attended. So it has been really satisfying for us. This goes on to show also the keenness of you all esteemed guests to the cause of nation building and to this very important webinar. Despite his extremely busy schedule, Shri Kushwinder Bohra sir, Chairman Central Water Commission and ex-officio Secretary to the Government of India and ex-officio Chairperson of the National Committee on Dam Safety, spared his valuable time from his extremely busy schedule, especially during ongoing Parliament session, to inaugurate this webinar and address the August gathering, which motivated all of us. NWA expresses its gratitude to you, sir, for your guidance and mentorship. I also wish to express our heartfelt gratitude to nationally and internationally acclaimed Shri A.V. Pandya, sir, Secretary General ICID and former Chairman Central Water Commission, who has been a guiding force for us for decades, who actually had to catch a flight, yet made it sure that he is able to contribute and enlighten us on very important aspect of preparedness for implementation of Dam Safety Act by dam owners. I take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to Shri J. Chandrashekhar Iyer, sir, former Chairman Central Water Commission, who explained in detail extremely important aspects on dam safety, that is duties, responsibilities and functions of dam owning authorities under the Act. I can't thank enough Dr. Pillai, sir, who as mentioned had spent decades, and his oratory is mind-blowing for all of us. Thank you, sir. And with profound respect and gratitude, I wish to express my sincere thanks to Shri Vijay Saran, sir, Chief Engineer Dam Safety Organization, Central Water Commission, and Project Director, Dam Rehabilitation and Improvement Project, Phase 2 and 3, to deliver the first session of this webinar and the soul of this webinar, that is on the topic of the Dam Safety Act. His energy and perseverance was contagious. If I had to name one person behind the humongous Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Keep guiding us and motivating us. With great humility, I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude to our chief engineer and head of academy, Shri, sir, who has been the driving force behind all our endeavors. Sir, your commitment to the work, attention to detail is unparalleled. Thanks for being our guide and mentor, sir. I also wish to express my sincere thanks to all the distinguished participants to this webinar, to all the faculty of NWA who put all out efforts to make it a success, and all our secretarial staff for their extraordinary support. Last but not the least, I also thank our IT team and housekeeping staff who make our job much easier and smooth. I will share all the presentations through email. Thank you all for making this webinar very enriching. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.